And the guy standing behind all this is our main hero, and, as always, exhausted by that soul-crushing routine. Because the Vtuber agency he joined Denjirasu seems to be a complete mess there. He looks at his colleague A in games he is a total zero, but somehow insanely popular. When suddenly a message sounded on his screen, it completely caught him by surprise. It is a very formal business letter from Katsuranishi. He politely and reservedly asks for a meeting. At the other end of the line is his manager Katsuranishi Ritsu, and she seems to never have had a smile on her face. Our guy, as always a pro, puts on the headset, politely agrees to the call end. And when she asked how he was doing, he just laughed and admitted that he was a complete newbie. Then this manager recalls her colleague, a certain A, and says that he is doing great. The full name of that colleague is Rieka Hanabi. Remember this name, people. Here is Rieka, a punk rock VTuber, who simply blows everyone away and has over 32,000 subscribers. Her entire brand is essentially loud, full-on, I'm throwing everything away, a true artist. Her crazy energy attracts views, but a crowd of trolls immediately gathers in her chat. But during the call, the manager tells him, don't worry about the haters, there's a team for that. Our guy just calmly nods and says that such things don't bother him at all, explaining that his iron nerves are the main reason why the agency even hired him. Because plot twist, the former male VTuber of their company died tragically. An unrelenting wave of slander and hatred from anonymous internet mobs fell upon this case. Those so-called unicorns who lost their heads every time he interacted with female VTubers. You know, before our guy arrived, Denjirasu was purely a female agency. Any collaboration turned into a real minefield. And that means every move of our guy, who now calls himself Yamanashi Batten, is a matter of life or death. His manager Katsuranishi insists that they are taking measures to cope with the wave of criticism, and they are doing it very convincingly. She promises that they will not rush and will slowly lead the public to accept him a typical corporate, non-plan. But our guy is not worried about the strength of spirit at all. He has a completely different move in mind, telling her that her slow and gradual approach is probably already too late to work. He honestly says that he is a complete novice in streaming and corporate marketing, but he is absolutely confident in his professional skills and that he will definitely win this clash. Because right now his VTuber persona is falling into the abyss, and if he doesn't get to work, everything is lost. With one raised finger, he interrupts her, ready to immediately put forward his own idea. And with a sly smile, he tells her that he has one little trick he wants to try. Katsuranishi is completely confused, absolutely unprepared for this sudden display of initiative. Without saying a word, he pressed start streaming and plunged headfirst into the chat, teeming with trolls. On the screen, his avatar Yame Nashi Botan appears and cheerfully greets the night audience. A huge crowd of 23 viewers is watching, and he greets each of them. Then he announces that tonight, as promised on Twitter, he is launching a completely new project. Honestly, he calls it a full reboot of his channel, and the chat immediately buzzed with curiosity. Leaning into the microphone, he began to tell all the nuances of his grand plan to save the channel. It seems this is a culinary stream, and it even has the banal graphics, let's cook. The chat simply exploded with confusion. Everyone was suddenly shocked by this strange turn. The chat immediately asks if he is really in the kitchen, and Botan's avatar just smiles, confirming it. And the shot of his real, slippers on the floor proves that he is not joking. Here our guy stands in a completely real, impeccably clean kitchen with his streaming equipment. The viewers are already skeptically suspicious, asking if this can even be called a remake, and he somewhat agrees. Botan, now in a virtual apron, insists food content is a powerful genre, from Asmr to tutorials. He places a cutting board and with a smile promises that what comes next will change their minds, before loudly throwing a giant scaly monster limb right onto the counter. And the chat just goes crazy, demanding to know what this even is. He lets the tension hang for a moment, uttering only one ominous phrase. Then with a sly smile, he reveals that this is a dungeon ingredient. For those who are confused, a dungeon is essentially deadly traps full of monsters where you can obtain rare trophies and new skills. The viewers are stunned and wonder how he managed to get such an expensive item for the stream. But Barton calmly corrected them, saying that he didn't buy this item at all, because he hunted it himself. In fact, he is a professional researcher. This sensation throws the chat into frenzy again. Everyone understands that he is a pro and probably has money. A flashback shows that since high school he was a professional dungeon seeker and earned money from it. For a traveler, cooking monster meat is a trivial matter, but he needed to find a way to deliver it to people. because he couldn't just open a restaurant or deliver the goods, so he was in complete despair until. And then he was struck by a brilliant idea. If you can't find a VTuber for a collab, become a VTuber yourself. And that's exactly how, before the stunned audience, he explained how he ended up right here. Botan asks if it would be fun to cook a monster, and the poll in the chat loudly shows everyone is totally for it. One viewer even asked why he didn't do it from the very beginning, and Botan just shrugged yes, a valid remark. He admits that he held back the topic was a bit too tense, and that's exactly what makes the chat even crazier. The viewers tell him, you don't need any strange tricks if this is your usual style, and he seems to agree. Deciding that it's time to stop talking, he finally gets down to business. And with a confident smile, he officially launches his segment, Let Us Cooking, a true showman. He raises a peace sign and promises all viewers a serious portion of delicious food. But first he has to arrange a small loot drop for that monster they are about to eat. This, he explains, is the claw of a tyrant crab found in the freshwater part of the dungeon. Simply put, a crab the size of a bear, as strong as a tank, that completely destroyed the chat. Now his audience is horrified. People ask, why is he risking his own life for this if orc meat is perfectly suitable? He reads the comments and estimates, about 80 pure anxiety and the remaining 20 stunned amazement. Button just waved it off, saying orc meat is a well-known brand, but this hit much harder, terrifying his fans. Suddenly, a new viewer pops up in the chat, a complete newbie on this channel. This person, also a professional researcher, asks if this is the crayfish that shoots high-pressure jets of water. Our guy is absolutely thrilled, ding ding ding, confirming that they are 100 right. Then he explains to the rest of the confused chat that this damn crayfish is really a tough mob. And when it circles near the water, it becomes a bit dangerous, because it can shoot a water cutter, an attack so powerful that it cleanly slices through wood. While the chat is completely engulfed in panic, Botan just laughs, not at all worried about the deadly threat. The constant cool guy in the chat is simply stunned. He realizes that the streamer is hunting creatures that supposedly cannot be killed. Another viewer asked the experts in the chat to please explain in simple words how truly cool this guy is. The verdict is this: if Barton caught that crayfish on his own, then he is without a doubt one of the best researchers in the entire country. We are talking about the absolute top, a pro who lives on a completely different level than everyone else. In fact, a whole squad of those top guys would just completely wreck this monster, instant you dead screen. Then Botan explains that this tyrant crayfish is a mid-level dungeon monster that everyone fears and avoids as if it were a real plague. Look, most explorers play it too safe. They only walk tried paths and avoid any real danger. But this creature is like the very reaper of the dungeon, a monster to be avoided at all costs. So he continues, step by step, laying out the next logical move before the stunned listeners. This meat is so rare that it can only be obtained by hiring an elite explorer, and they ask an astronomical fee for it. His smug smile says it all. He holds the most coveted and unattainable prize in his hands. This stream will simply sweep away all the haters and bad reviews. He even teases, saying that other channels only prepare boring stuff like orc meat, pure snooze. And then he pulls out a knife as long as a short sword, finally ready to get to work. He, like a true pro, carefully inspects the blade completely in his element, because the real show is about to begin. Although this is an ingredient from the dungeon, he adds one more little detail to the class. This is an item that drops, and that means the meat inside is perfectly preserved and tightly packed. He casually cuts through the shell, revealing flawless meat, and the whole chat instantly crashes. He says it's so fresh that it can be eaten raw like sashimi, and a real panic starts in the comments. The viewers just go crazy, shouting that it's fake, and Botan has no idea what he just said wrong. Botan glanced at the chat. It was buzzing much more than he expected, and he immediately understood their surprise. He simply turns his back, knife in hand, and says he has nothing to say about this whole sashimi story. His avatar with a smug smile just says, no comment, and the chat harshly mocks him for running away instead of explaining. He basically says it's too complicated for their little brains, so they should just accept it as a fact, a real masterclass in audience domination. Then he clarifies that most asterisk explorers can probably do it, and the chat immediately latches onto that probably. Someone in the chat just says, wait, are you now despising all of humanity? One older viewer noted that since dungeons appeared, the laws of physics have already gone a bit haywire. Suddenly another professional researcher jumps in and says, no, almost no one can do that, and the chat immediately highlights that there is disagreement among experts. Completely ignoring the conversation about the meaning of life that he just raised himself, Botan cheerfully decides it's time to choose the menu. This is too much for one sitting, so he decides to eat only half and save the rest for another day. His face instantly froze in a deadly serious expression as he thought about how to prepare this mythical dish. He weighs the options. Sashimi a must, something grilled in the classic style, soup will perfectly finish everything, and the chat meanwhile showers praise. Then with a confident smirk, he declared, "I have decided." He raises 3 fingers and announces the final menu: sashimi, grilled dishes, and miso soup, a full 3-course meal. This portion of sashimi was cut into such huge pieces that they look like some giant sweet shrimp, wow. And here is the fried part, just claw meat, thrown right onto the tabletop stove to impress to the maximum. As for the miso soup, he just tosses the leftovers in there, confident that an incredible broth will come out. The menu is finally approved. He grabs his tools and announces, it's time for the main event, the cooking show. First, he goes to the sink and pours water into the pot for the miso soup. Then he slaps it onto the stove and lights the burner. While the water for the soup heats up, Botan takes on the sashimi, moving like a true pro, and his skill with a knife is absolutely flawless. He glides through the meat, and the chat watches in admiration. Botan's avatar smiles, basking in praise for his unexpectedly clean technique. And here the sashimi is ready. 4 huge, perfectly looking slices are laid out on the plate and ready. These scraps immediately fly into the cauldron, because such divine ingredients are not thrown away. Next on the menu grill, the main meat of the claw sizzles appetizingly on the fire. He is a real whirlwind in motion, tossing vegetables and cutting onions like a chef on a hibachi. He has an incredible style. This 3-course meal of the tyrannical crayfish is finished, and the chat simply explodes with hype. Botan confidently inhales and throws a small warning to viewers at home, explaining this is not an ordinary crayfish, so the rule "don't eat it raw" does not apply here. His avatar panics a little, imagining that children might try this at home. He is a very responsible content creator. To no longer hear complaints about his big debut, he finally decides to just eat that damn thing. He places the feast in front of the camera and asks the stunned viewers to say their last word. Sashimi looks so delicious that the whole chat seems to be begging to taste it through the screen. Meanwhile, the grilled claw is shining. The viewers unanimously say, it can't be that it tastes bad. Even the soup is already being called food terrorism, and Botan assures the taste is guaranteed to be exquisite. Then he boldly admits that he got all the food from the middle level of the dungeon, just to show off even more. A brief dungeonology lesson: the deeper you dive, the more valuable the loot, and to make you understand, orc meat from the upper layer is already considered a delicacy on par with signature pork. Meanwhile, another VTuber, Snacking, watches the stream and directly says that Botan is just showing off in front of everyone. And he is not wrong. Botan's viewer count just skyrocketed over 68,000 people. The number kept growing, and another streamer was simply stunned by the sudden explosion. He thought that Botan's colleagues probably told about it, but never expected it to spread so insanely. Somewhere else, a VTuber with ponytails is laughing uncontrollably with joy, enjoying the chaos she helped create. And she suddenly bursts into the chat, confirms this, and says that, of course, she will share such a crazy thing with the whole world. A quick analysis shows how the viral chain from colleagues to fans, then throughout the entire Explorer community, until it hits the trends. Then another colleague, Miko, admits that she also shared it mainly to make everyone jealous through food, a true hero. Botan grabbed his phone and saw in horror that because of food terrorism, he ended up in the trends, a label he never asked for. He is really panicking. He was supposed to stay away from other VTubers to avoid causing drama. Turns out his biggest fear is not monsters. It is the huge influx of new viewers, and he has no idea how to handle it. He just stands there completely stunned, while colleagues' comments flood the chat and blow his mind. This. These two basically tell him, stop worrying and let us help. One of them is full of hype, the other radiates a gentle, there, dear. For a moment, Botan really looks touched by their chaotic support, although it gives him an aneurysm. But in his head, their support rather looks like they are throwing fireballs right in his face. But actually what worries him is not fame. He is suffocated by soulless legal wrangling over evaluating things from dungeons. Deciding to postpone his problems, he picks up the food and says he will deal with Miko later, and Miko is definitely not thrilled. He folds his hands to start eating, while colleagues mercilessly mock him for ignoring them in the chat. And here he finally takes a piece of sashimi in his hands, ready to start the long-awaited tasting. But before eating, he puts the claw on the grill, explaining that its shell is so hard that it needs to be cooked slowly. Miko says that the shell is so hard and insanely heat-resistant that it needs to be cooked slowly on low heat. The grill is ready, and Botan announces with a smile that while they wait, he will start with the sashimi. He lifts a huge, shiny piece of crayfish meat, ready for the first bite, no sauce needed. And here the axe falls, the moment of truth for this legendary ingredient from the dungeon. His eyes instantly widen in pure, genuine shock. The taste is unreal. For several full seconds he just froze, and his entire audience hung in painful anticipation. The reaction exploded instantly. He blushed to his ears and started drooling. The taste completely shut down his brain. His avatar literally split in half to shout, "Delicious," and it was a perfectly accurate reaction. He tries to pull himself together, but the chat storms him with messages demanding an immediate description of the taste. Button says it's like sweet shrimp and crab had a child who also lifts weights and is an ester ingredient. To take this to a new level, he slightly squeezes fresh kabasu for an even brighter flavor. This drives his colleague with braids into a frenzy. In the chat she screams, demanding a piece for herself. This piece with a citrus hint sends him to paradise again, while he skillfully ignores his friends. He says that only sashimi, that's already 10 out of 10, a true flex of the highest grade. But the show is not over yet. He again turns his attention to the paw, perfectly sizzling on the grill. His viewers are now sure that he doesn't even read their comments, but just holds his food above them and acts arrogantly. With a truly sinister smile, Botan says that he is in a great mood because he is showing off in front of everyone. For the next dish, he dramatically takes out a small bottle of soy sauce and pours it directly onto the claw, heated to red hot, and it instantly evaporates. This incredible sound and smell of burnt soy sauce spread in the air and drive the chat crazy. Meanwhile, in the chat, his colleagues unleash a real full-scale war. Who will get the first collab? Botan doesn't notice anything around at all, just glowing with happiness because of his crab steak, like a child on Christmas morning. He bites off a huge piece of perfectly grilled claw meat, holding his breath in anticipation of an explosion of flavor, and it just completely overwhelms him, leaving him speechless in the chair from pure, genuine bliss. His colleague with braids is now throwing a real tantrum in the chat and stubbornly demanding a collab. Completely ignoring all this drama, our guy moves on to the last dish, miso soup. He takes one single cautious sip, and everything is clear. It is incredibly delicious. He tries to calm his overloaded taste receptors with the soup, and it spectacularly fails. Because this rich broth just revs up his appetite to even higher levels. This dude is simply lost in pure, sincere euphoria from the food, truly a wonderful sight. And suddenly the honest truth, why he even became a VTuber. He wanted his hero, an explorer named Jin Sakai, to try his dungeon cuisine. To make this dream a reality, he knows he needs to become much more popular on the platform. Currently, Miko is already quite annoyed by his silence in the chat. She's simply boiling with rage because he is ignoring her, and we see that her real name is Hinami Akari. Her avatar pouted and swore that he would pay for this during their inevitable collab. And here is Hinami herself, a 19-year-old girl whose virtual name seems to be Rika Hinabi. Lying in bed, she grumbles that he could at least have warned his colleagues before this trick. Botan suddenly shivered from the cold, as if sensing a storm about to break over his head. Because Hinami decided to take matters into her own hands, her phone is already ringing. The next morning in Botan's apartment, the phone did not stop ringing. Calls came one after another. He wakes up amid a storm of notifications, absolutely stunned by what he sees. A post about his stream, with crabs spread across the entire network, overnight messages kept pouring in endlessly. His subscriber count soared to an astonishing 150,000, and on Twitter, the same number followed him. Our guy just sits, stunned, completely unable to understand how one stream could explode so much. And to make it even crazier, famous clippers have already cut his stream into viral clips. And this whole clipper culture is a truly powerful advertising machine, which, as it turned out, even took his trick abroad. It was at that moment that his phone rang, an incoming call from Kanzaki. It's his manager, and she is simply losing her mind, wildly congratulating him on these incredible numbers. Meanwhile, Button just mumbles that the rework was successful, but does not share the excitement. She doesn't want to hear it. He, in just one night, is already competing with the best talents of their agency. He blushes and, embarrassed and stumbling over his words, says that even comparing him to their legendary top streamer, M.A.M. Senpai, is rude. This M.A.M. Senpai is essentially the unattainable goddess of the agency, a first-generation talent adored by everyone. But enough, let's get back to business. The manager wants to know what his next step is now that he has become a viral sensation. Button believes that you have to strike while the iron is hot and just ride this huge wave of hype. He literally imagines himself surfing on a giant crab and is going to squeeze everything possible out of this wave. His big idea is a special edition in honor of 150,000 subscribers. He promises to prepare something even more valuable than the previous dish. But his manager sees further. She says that a collab would be the perfect way to celebrate this milestone. Button immediately slammed on the brakes and said that it would take an eternity to properly arrange a collab. But he didn't even collaborate with Rika Hanabi from his generation, so he won't dare to do something large-scale. Button says that his whole strategy is to avoid collabs to reduce drama almost to zero. But now that he has become famous, everything is falling into place like a row of dominoes that he has to knock down one by one. First on the list is his peer Rika Hanabi with ponytails, who looks too happy about it. If she is passed over for a collab with someone else, rumors will immediately spread that they hate each other. Vtuber Drama 101. Considering the time, he tells his manager that it is probably better to postpone the special stream for now. His manager cuts in, let the colleagues just join the chat, and all these rumors about conflicts will disappear. She firmly warns him, making a reckless, too bold move right now is a terrible idea. Meanwhile, she is already making a list of his problematic statements to resolve the consequences and tells him that she will handle everything herself. Button suggests his idea to hold a solo stream in honor of an important milestone to strengthen his brand even before any joint projects. To his surprise, the manager agrees, seeing strong logic in his plan. When everything was decided, she immediately told him to prepare the announcement, and she went to inform the agency. The call ends, and our guy throws the phone aside, ready to hit the road. He dramatically stretched out, showed off his abs to the world, and announced that it was time to prepare the stream. And now a special stream in honor of 150K is already live. Barton's avatar greets his huge new audience. Chad immediately explodes with greetings, and his avatar says they have already surpassed 160,000 viewers. Even foreign viewers shower him with love, and he realizes how far this video has spread. Our guy just laughs at this, telling everyone that it's like he woke up and found out he became famous overnight. He modestly thanks everyone for their support, while the chat is still going crazy, over 150,000 subscribers in one day. He sincerely welcomes all the new faces and promises he has another incredibly delicious dish prepared for them. When politeness is left behind, he announces that it's time to move straight to the main event. He announces, since this is a special stream, he will prepare something even more luxurious than last time, but immediately backs off, saying that his longtime viewers know he's not very good at talking, so don't expect much. And so this incredibly awkward transition is finally behind. Button sharply turns around and announces that it's time to move on to the main course, no more empty chatter. When the chat calls him out for the sudden change, he simply says he'll show a recording now. And then he lifts the cover, a huge, simply colossal piece of marble meat that looks divine. Chad immediately recognizes it. This is top-grade meat, and one comment guessed correctly, it's for overseas fans. And that's 100 his plan. He imagines his international viewers going crazy over some prime meat. But suddenly his eye catches a comment saying that the colleagues have just gone mad looking at this. And he has to ask the chat again if this is really happening right now, and the chat replies, yes. Turned out his peers were insanely angry that he was doing this alone, so they arranged a joint viewing to discuss and criticize it together. This confirmation hits him like a truck, because we see the whole team, tightly gathered around one monitor, screaming wildly during his stream. Button smiles and says that if everyone is watching, then he'll have to put on a show for them too. He did not hesitate, immediately got down to business, ready to talk about that legendary ingredient he is going to prepare. It is. He shows it is a drop from a forged demon's cup, and this is not just a cut, it is Chateaubriand. A quick diagram shows this is the best part of the tenderloin, the most tender piece that exists. And imagine, from a whole cow you can get only about 600 grams, and the chat is just shocked. Of course, the demon's forged cup is 5 to 6 times larger than a regular cow, so that's that. And his body is an absurd combination of incredible massiveness and musculature, leaving everyone in the chat speechless. To show everyone how absurd this meeting is, he decides to arrange a little show for the viewers. And with one light tap of the knife, the blade completely shattered against the thick piece of beef. He just smiles through the chaos, and the chat goes completely crazy, asking if he is okay. Twist, turn, 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 turn. It turns out the muscle fibers in this thing are literally as strong as wire. You can't cut it by ordinary means. Button so casually assures everyone that he caught the broken blade in the air, like an ordinary person would do. The demonstration is over. He announces that finally the time has come to cook for real. Tonight on the menu, forged demonic bull, Chateaubriand Hamburg steak made from 100 pure beef without any additives. In other words, it is. This is a true meat feast, a luxurious parade celebrating the finest beef. Its first step is to turn the stove into mince, and Ched immediately points out that this is logically impossible. The audience is quite justifiably skeptical. They wonder how to even choose something that can break steel. But our guy just smiled and promised to use a special method, one that no one at home even dares to try to replicate. And suddenly a special skill begins to activate. His eyes flare up as he touches his unique power, the Venom Alley. We are briefly explained that dungeon seekers can acquire these mysterious power skills, and this allows him to see the very foundations of the world and briefly rewrite them for a certain purpose. In the end, a technique that instantly and flawlessly processes any target. He unleashes his signature move. Thousand cuts a storm of invisible blades that descends on the meat. The concentration is incredible. The reticulated pattern of the attack is reflected in his eye, and suddenly the indestructible slab instantly turns into a perfect pile of mint candies, and the chat just froze in amazement. Botan just smirked, watching the whole chat panic, and admitted he did it just for the drama. Then he warns everyone, even his mint draggies, it's still very dangerous to deal with. It turns out you need to use a skill to harden your hands, because the meat wires will tear them apart, a perfectly normal cooking tip. He casually adds that other researchers probably can handle the moment of hardening hands, as if that's the only crazy step here. But in this form the meat is still inedible, so he has to knead it carefully until it finally softens. After hard work, what once seemed unbreakable is now perfectly soft and pliable under his touch. The whole point of his secret is to break the fibers before heating so the flavor finally unfolds. But the chat catches his hesitation and throws the million-dollar question: has he actually ever eaten this? And he just straightforwardly admits with a smile, yeah, he's trying this thing for the first time in his life, our guy. Our guy laughs and says that usually he would just buy ready-made food at the store, not bother like this. Then he finally says a very simple reason why he went through all this trouble for the stream. Because he just knew for sure that it would be incredibly tasty. He explains a simple dungeon rule: the deeper you go down, the better the loot. If you follow the same logic, the ingredients from the deepest levels are definitely the best, no matter how strange they may seem. After the theoretical lesson, he announced that the session necessary for the marathon was finally over. Now it's time to season this huge cutlet and slap it into the mold, driving all the air out of it. He decides that a kilogram cutlet is the perfect start and prepares a stone plate for the main event. This huge cutlet hits the hot stone with a crash, instantly sizzles, and despite the piece being tender, surprises with its impressive density. So much juice is already flowing from it that he suddenly realizes he needs to prepare a sauce that will go well with it. Meanwhile, at Hate Watch, his colleagues turned this into a continuous scream, pure, uncontrollable envy over the food. One of his friends almost drools and asks everyone to wait a second. And in the pan, the rendered juices turn into a sauce that already looks like a true legend. Even Botan admits only the smell makes him insanely want to eat. Having fried the cutlet on all sides, he only set it aside for a moment. After all, wasting all that fragrant oil is a real crime against humanity. He begins to craft a thick sauce from red wine, and Chad is sure that before him is a professional chef in disguise. But as soon as he puts the cutlet back, his viewers start to panic. Inside it is still raw. Botan smugly points to the hot stove he has been heating all this time. The plan is simple and exciting: finish cooking right at the table in teppanyaki style. He asks everyone to look for this type of Hamburg steak, and Chat immediately starts planning how to make his own. Of course, he immediately calls out, "Don't try this," but as you know, no one listens to him. His main reason is that fat splatters will just destroy your kitchen. In fact, this is a very practical remark. With a devilish smile, he says that is exactly why his viewers should just go and pay for it at a restaurant while he tortures them. And at that moment, a comment from Reiki appears in the chat. She demands an offline collab because the stream is too cool to ignore. Botan, suddenly finding himself surrounded by a flock of pigeons for some unknown reason, asks his colleagues to calm down. He finally gives in and says that if they are making such a fuss, they might as well just do a real collab. He opens the request line and says, "Send everything you want if you're so passionate about it." Requests from his peers flooded in instantly. They want everything from a hearty dinner to expensive alcohol. Looking from the edge of the screen and swaying a little, he says that the message was heard loud and clear. And here they serve the last dish, a huge forged demon bowl set with a Hamburg steak that looks simply divine. The masterpiece is complete, and Botan announces that the time for the official tasting has finally come. and he calls on the viewers to witness this legendary first bite. The fork in his hand sinks into the once unbreakable meat, and it is immediately clear how incredibly tender it has become. And as soon as he cut the cutlet, a real volcano of juices erupted from it. Our guy just looks, completely stunned by the burst of flavor that escapes. This meat pushes out all the moisture hidden inside like a fountain, a truly breathtaking spectacle. But he hasn't finished, yet now it's time to add the sauce. The chat is just madness. When he is about to pour, they call him the Lord of the Mountain. At this moment, he has already completely disconnected from all the comments, which were only about the food in front of him. He bathes the steak in a rich red wine sauce, and the whole chat is just bursting with envy. Botan suddenly starts laughing like a madman, completely conquered by his own culinary genius. Lifting one shiny piece, he knows this will surpass everything he has ever tasted. He took a deep breath and raised the fork to his mouth time for the final verdict. This bite is a moment of pure, sincere taste sensation, and his whole world just crumbles into a million delicious pieces. Our guy freezes without words, unable even to comprehend what is happening when. He tries to form words, but nothing comes out. The taste is too strong. Then he realized that he can't just leave the chat hanging. He needs to find words to explain this divine experience. He starts tapping on the keys, trying to convey the sensation of something hard, like steel, melting on his tongue. But the words betray him, so he simply dives in again and bites off another huge piece, completely conquered by the deliciousness. After a steak of god level, he adds a huge portion of plain white rice. And our guy just begins to deeply inhale it, completely detached from everything around. He goes back for another serving of rice, as if obsessed with the pure taste, and his viewers literally hear only a deep, satisfied sigh for a whole minute. Botan finally emerges with a blissful smile and declares a complete victory, and in the chat this is already called food terrorism. Then he sluggishly apologizes for completely abandoning the stream just to eat, before smugly saying that his culinary streams are always like this and everyone needs to get used to it. And with that, he waved goodbye. The special episode suddenly ended right here, at this moment. Leaning back, he admitted that he just couldn't resist. The food was too delicious to waste time talking. But as soon as he turns away from the table, as if he has one last thing he wants to say, suddenly he appears in a luxurious fur coat and solemnly thanks everyone who came to his stream on the occasion of 150,000 subscribers. He loudly thanks his team and the viewers who have been with him from the very beginning, expressing sincere gratitude for the opportunity to be seen by so many people. Suddenly, a colleague looked into the chat, greeted him, and persistently insisted that all the success was solely his merit. She shows him step by step how to build a career, first to gain a loyal circle of fans, and then to make him famous throughout the country. Botan bows modestly and asks everyone to continue supporting him on this path. When all matters are finally resolved, he presses the button and the broadcast goes out once and for all. As soon as everything ended, he collapsed back into the chair, completely exhausted but relieved. At that very moment, a young man with dark hair appears behind him, completely puzzled. This is his manager, who wonders, what is he doing here immediately after the stream ended? Botan froze like a statue. The manager caught him red-handed during the post-stream breakdown. His manager simply raises the phone on the screen, is a message from a colleague named Hanabi about a consultation. It turned out to be an offer for an offline collab with his peers, suspiciously similar to a trap. Suddenly we are transported to the girl in the beret. She waves near the door and calls Botan, because the time has come. Botan looks completely dead inside when he is told to prepare for their broadcast. And suddenly, bursting with energy, the stream starts with an extraordinarily joyful wave. Finally, Botan together with his colleague from the same generation, Rika Hanabi, officially begin their first joint stream. Hanabi is all in. She demands that Botan match her energy, but he clearly does not. He just smiles in front of 20,000 viewers and says that he made them wait not only in one sense. She almost vibrates with excitement, celebrating that the official ban on collabs has finally been lifted. Apparently, they had been whispering behind the scenes all this time, and now they can finally tell everyone about it, but she was all business. She ordered him to stop the small talk and get to the main point. He tries to do it his way, saying that on his channel it's action right away without any empty chatter. The chat wildly asks for details, and Hanabi agrees the time for a big reveal has come. And so, with great fanfare, she finally announces the essence of today's joint project. This is an official collab of genmates, and she adds with a superior smile that this time he won't escape. The theme is a luxurious dinner by Chef Botan, and for this occasion she has an incredibly ridiculous mask. So here's the deal. He takes ingredients from his dungeon and cooks for her essentially using a favor obtained during the last stream. Ched immediately starts to panic, but Botan seems to notice that one of their Gen friends is missing. Hanabi pushes the microphone right into his face and firmly demands to find out what Chef Botan is cooking for tonight. Cornered, Botan listens as Hanabi announces that by popular demand, she will serve luxurious seafood. And she immediately demands to know how expensive this meal is, making Botan awkwardly stammer and mumble about market prices. Then suddenly something clicked in his head. He remembered the news about the dungeon fish that sold for 2 million yen. And he so easily values his ingredients at least twice as expensive, as if this is a perfectly normal price. As soon as the amount was announced several million yen for the dinner, something just short-circuited in Hanabi's head. Meanwhile, their colleagues are heatedly arguing what's the point if he just eats it all himself, like a fisherman's meal. The chat instantly became alert and suspiciously asked if the mountain lord forgot to pay taxes. He just snorted and explained that he has a professional accountant who makes all his underground business completely legal. Then our guy says the fundamental difference between them is how they see the world. Because for him, a simple walk through the dungeon with a stick brings in 10 times more than the annual salary of an office worker. Hanabi is simply stunned when he explains, there is no point in committing a crime if you can get rich completely legally. He calls it an absolute life hack. Going through the lower floors alone, without any equipment, is really senselessly strong. Finally, she realizes, Botan is not just rich, he exists in a completely different economic world. She tries to refuse everything, insists that it is too expensive, but Botan physically prevents her from backing down. He stands close to her face and growls that all the ingredients from the dungeons are incredibly expensive, so what was she even expecting? Hanabi completely lost it and shouts that she knew they are valuable, but not enough to cost a car. She even insists that she was fully ready to quietly return the money to him for lunch. But Botan just waved it off, saying that you can't just give that to others like that. He suddenly pulls her onto a chair and refuses any payment, says that money will only complicate everything. Our guy just sighs, explaining that the whole point is to stage a scene with absurdly luxurious food for the sake of the stream. Hanabi completely loses it, shouting that her genmate is much crazier than she ever imagined. Botan simply tells her to run the stream, then goes to cook, leaving her to clean up all this chaos. Even their other genmate in the chat says that Botan has completely lost his mind. Ignoring everyone, he pulls out a small, inconspicuous pouch from off-camera, and rips out a fish the size of a torpedo, ready to start while Hanabi begs him to stop. She goes completely crazy, demanding to know where that monster came from. Our guy casually lifts this giant sea monster as if it were a baguette from the store. She points out the obvious and asks, "Did you really pull that huge thing out of that tiny pouch?" He thinks she's worried about freshness and assures her that time has stopped inside, although he actually doesn't care about that right now. Finally, Hanabi exclaims the obvious, the size of the fish and the bag do not match at all. It turns out it's a spatial pouch, a classic item box with the ability to stop time, and she just can't believe it's real. The chat instantly explodes. Everyone calls it one of the most hacked items that exist. Someone else indignantly points out, this is a strategic asset at the state level, why did some random streamer just win it? Suddenly, a viewer remembered the recent story about how the US government bought a similar item for a crazy 40 billion yen, and Hanabi's soul simply leaves her body. She just froze, staring at the terrible comments flooding in, while Botan is already ready to start chopping and cutting. He casually explains, since the thing is tied specifically to him, on paper it costs zero, essentially a perfect way not to pay taxes. Pushing aside a bag worth billions of yen, he seemingly effortlessly pulls out a huge underground lobster. He serves the appetizer, a large dish with grilled and raw lobsters, which looks simply divine. Then Botan asks if she can even eat shellfish, and all she manages is a weak nod, because she is completely shattered by the situation. Hanabi is completely confused, saying that this whole collab is too much for her poor little heart. Botan just throws a self-satisfied smile, promising that one bite will make her forget all her small, unimportant problems. And at that very moment, several workers unexpectedly appear off-camera and ask if they can try the legendary dish too. Under the pressure of peers and her own curiosity, Hanabi finally gives in and prepares to eat. She encourages everyone by shouting that delicious food should be shared, and everyone gathers around the table. Hanabi then asks if Chef Botan will join them, but he is already busy. The next dish is bubbling on the stove. He simply nods all right, grabs chopsticks, and finally joins the banquet himself. When everyone has gathered, they cheerfully shout a sincere bon appetit and prepare to dive into the underground lobster. Hanabi takes the first bite, a moment of pure, sincere contact with the flavor. And her whole world seems to shatter into tiny pieces, her eyes wide open in complete disbelief at this taste. In her head, the taste causes a short circuit, while Botan just watches and enjoys the complete chaos he himself created. Even the workers in the heavens are amazed, how is this even possible? And Botan just shrugs, it's food from the dungeon, what else did you expect? A visual diagram explains that dungeon creatures are fundamentally different from ordinary animals, so their taste is truly divine. Hanabi starts crying, it's just unfair. She knows she will never be able to return to ordinary shrimp again. Blood even runs from her nose because the taste just exploded, but she physically cannot stop eating. The addiction is real. Button casually asks if she is okay, because the main course is ahead, and he fears she might start crying for real. She immediately responds sharply, accusing him of spreading rumors that she is crying, and yes, she really is crying. Unfazed, he simply tells her to prepare the sticks for the next dish, now lifting the empty plate. With a confident smirk, she wonders if the main course might be as tasty as that appetizer. Within seconds, she is already unconscious on the floor. Barton says she hasn't had enough yet, and chat just loves this drama. After the appetizer, Botan announced that it was time to move on to the main course, and he dramatically opens a giant piece of fish. Hanabi is simply stunned, who can only exclaim, "What on earth is this?" while explaining that this is dungeon drop tuna, or more precisely, it is a monster that accidentally looks and tastes like tuna, but is actually something completely different. He reveals its official name, cannonball tuna, and it doesn't sound threatening at all. And the name is quite literal here. It is a fish the size of a cow, which rushes through the water like a living projectile. Having narrowly avoided deadly danger, he calmly pointed to various cuts of fatty taro on its belly. Finally, Hanabi's brain rebooted. The first thing that came to her mind was to ask if she could upload the photo to Twitter. He gives her the green light and says, "Do whatever you want, they won't show it on video anyway." And her tweet immediately exploded with comments. Everyone claimed that the fish was worth at least 4 million yen. While she was processing this, Botan casually said that at the auction it probably fetched 30 million. Before posting the rest of the dishes, rice with vinegar, gnarly, and miso soup. Here is the recipe. This side of the rice with vinegar finally clicked in Hanabi's head. She realized that they were making sushi, which Barton confirms by lifting the perfect hand roll and saying that it is the perfect everyday dish. She is horrified at the very thought of using everything, and he just waved it off, saying it's like buying an already sliced pack at the store. Hanabi's brain officially surrenders. It decides that for the sake of her sanity, it's better to just give in to the madness. She returns to the huge piece of fish and says the last bold word about this situation. And Barton just laughs and promises that soon she won't be able to think about anything at all. When the jokes ended, he grabbed the huge blade and shouted that finally the time to cut had come. The first cut is about to be made. The knife itself seems to shine with anticipation. With one clean motion, Botan begins to cut the huge fish belly with surgical precision. And then he skillfully slices the piece, dividing it into perfect portions: lean, medium, and fatty taro, before moving on to slicing the block into generous, thick pieces for sashimi. And in a matter of seconds, a mountain of perfectly arranged slices grows on the tray. Even the trimmings do not go to waste. He starts grinding the leftovers into a fine paste. He adds a spoonful of miso and generously squeezes wasabi to enhance the flavor. And our guy simply switches to pro chef mode, swiftly slicing and mixing everything together, resulting in a perfect bowl that looks like top-level negatoro. He even scrapes the last pieces of meat off the skin so that absolutely nothing is wasted. And with a skillful flourish, he presents the final masterpiece, a luxurious sushi set with tuna, even including the head for effect. Hanabi's brain finally rebooted, and she shouts that she has a million things she wants to say about this whole situation. She complains that while she was distracted, he had already moved on to preparing something else, and on an open flame at that. Glancing at the phone, she sees how chat is going crazy and suddenly realizes he earned so much that it will be enough for the whole team. He just showed a peace gesture, and as if nothing, threw out that the entire preparation took him only 3 minutes. Botan simply says stop overthinking and just eat, and she can no longer even argue with that. And on his face shone an incredibly arrogant smile, as if he was challenging her to complain. She sighs and just listens as he shows different cuts of taro from fatty to lean. Deciding to take a risk, she picks up a shiny piece of the fattiest taro to make her first roll by hand. She bites off a huge piece, preparing for another culinary brain blast. And then she suddenly disappeared from her seat, leaving Botan completely bewildered. Botan asks how the food tastes, and with surprise sees that Hanabi is lying face down on the table. And he only slyly smiled, admitting that he was not surprised at all, a completely expected result of his cooking. She jumps again, but only silently and mechanically chews with dead eyes, while Chat pleadingly asks for a review. The narrator explains that when people eat something truly divine, their brains just break. Or, to explain this whole situation more precisely, this stream of taste sensations from her tongue completely paralyzes her higher functions and turns her into a machine that only eats. He noticed that she ate only one piece and told her to stop savoring it for so long. Then he leans in with a devilish smile and whispers to her to just keep eating. It's incredibly creepy. Chad instantly felt a chill, calling him a demon, pushing her beyond the point of no return. Someone in the chat directly asks if he is a sadist, and Botan just looks offended at the very suspicion that he is. He shouts that it's just to show his partner froze, but Chad doesn't fall for it even for a second. They point out that his true, twisted nature is breaking through the mask, while Hanabi just keeps chewing. When Chat suggests setting him on fire, Botan is genuinely surprised. Would he even catch fire? Until he came to his senses and shouted, "You just can't treat people like that." Suddenly Hanabi seems to reboot and asks why he was silently eating all this time. And Botan just exploded, shouting that she literally turned into a doll that eats, as if he pressed the robot's power button. Then he pulls out a torch and a gasoline canister and says that the very fact that he even thought about it proves he is a sadist. Our guy just throws a sly glance, as if to say, don't take his wild joke so seriously. Meanwhile, all the staff silently greedily devour the tuna, immersed in a sweet post-lunch drowse. Batten just sighs, wondering what to do with the stream until Hanabi's consciousness decides to return, and when his partner dropped out, Botan simply takes over the stream and invents a hashtag for his squad, Cannonball Tuna. While Hanabi's brain rebooted, all the food was already gone, and our guy just calmly washes the dishes, the perfect crime. A little later, another streamer ends her broadcast and recalls the stormy but successful collab with Hanabi. Here is Ikika, an experienced streamer, launching her collab, and behind her back peeks tiny Botan. She excites everyone, points to her partner, and gestures dramatically, introducing him to the audience for the whole day, teasing that he is just a newbie, but lately really making big waves. And now the whole streaming world is buzzing about it, and the reasons are obvious. Before the reveal, her partner is, of course, the chaos agent Botan himself. But instead of his usual self-satisfied energy, he makes an overly tense and overly formal bow, and this completely throws Ike off. It turned out that he really sees in his senpai a sincere, kind person, and this is a rare show of respect for him. A brief flashback shows that she was one of the few who, after some unknown incident, was kind to him, and therefore, she helped him out when he was barely holding on. Now, he feels that he owes her a lot, which turns into an absurdly deep apologetic bow, in which she begs him, please, to stand up straight. He states that the apology phase is over, and now he will behave as usual, but she is still recovering from that crazy awkwardness. Now he is just a floating head, confessing that he is terribly nervous, and Aika just emotionlessly asks if he is still tense. She is truly stunned. A guy with a god complex can be nervous, and she keeps wondering what he thinks about her. Fortunately, the tension dissipated, and they laughed together. Botan jokingly says that she just revealed his only weakness. Having officially broken the ice, Aika again brings the stream back on track and prepares to reveal his plan for the day. She announced that they will now play together, and opened a game that looked extremely creepy. Aika asks if he minds a horror game for their first collab, and it seems they are both ready to start. Botan shyly admits that this whole horror game story is actually his fault, because his reflexes, hardened in dungeons, make him too strong for fights against ordinary people. So they, of course, had to choose a horror game just for the freakouts that go well on stream. He asks if a cooking stream wouldn't be better, and jokingly says it might only cause her stomach pain. Mikiko reminds him that after that Hanabi incident, the bosses officially banned him from participating in any cooking collaborations. Returning to the present, he just looks at the screen. It's clear he is not at all thrilled about all this. Our guy teases and asks if she can even handle horror, saying she seems like the type who scares easily. She just gave that self-satisfied little smile, admitting she is a real coward but still watches. Chad immediately confirms this. She is known for loving horror, although she constantly screams at the top of her lungs. Botan suggests she take the wheel and move at her own pace. She gratefully agrees. And then he declares that he will just stand as a commentator, leaving her alone against that horror. What a man. To really set the mood, Aikika decides to turn off the lights in the room. And with just one click of the start button, the game officially begins. This introduction paints a classic picture. A lonely girl walks along a dark road in the middle of the night. We see a close-up of her sneakers on the sidewalk each step, echoes in the silence. This story tells that she is heading home late because she got a little too carried away with club activities. Bam, a huge ghostly face suddenly popped up on the screen, and Aika's little avatar just goes crazy. In the studio, she is completely thrown off, and Botan calmly asks about that strange sound she just made. Meanwhile, the character in the game just stands there wondering if it all was just a hallucination. But then she looked at the phone and noticed something slightly off-screen that immediately caught her eye. In this character's game, a ghostly face suddenly appears on the phone, and Aika's avatar just loses control. So Botan calmly asks if she is really a horror fan since she is about to lose it. She just sits there as if her soul has already ascended to another level of existence. Mikika notices that he didn't even flinch from that sudden scare, and he is like, of course not. He says that if a researcher flinches from surprise, they simply die, and that doesn't help at all. This suddenly shocked Aika. He terribly realized why it doesn't bother him at all. Turns out he is just used to it. When you fight monsters every day, a horror movie is just background noise. Then he starts philosophizing, saying that it is unfair to judge the fictional by the standards of his crippled reality. And our guy asks why she can't just be scared like an ordinary person, and somehow this makes her laugh. Meanwhile, in the game, the main heroine is just running madly, saving her life in absolute horror. Then Aika suddenly remembers that she heard researchers supposedly have a sixth sense for ghosts, and asks if it's true. Botan paused for a moment over the term sixth sense, looking as if about to reveal some important legend. She immediately starts denying it, deciding that it is just a silly rumor she heard somewhere. And then he just says that he actually sees ghosts, and the chat just explodes. When everyone fixed their gaze, he raised a finger as if about to give a real lecture. He explains that constant use of skills and magic sharpens and expands perception to a superhuman level. And Aika connects the dots and asks if this is the sixth sense that he possesses. Yes, almost. He continues to explain that some monsters are of the astral type, meaning they are basically just ghosts that you can hit with a fist. Having fought them more than once, you instinctively feel their presence, as if tuning a radio to the right frequency. She asks if he can drive them away, and he explains that researchers simply hunt them like any other monster. Aika asks if he can handle real ghosts, and Botan just laughs and boastfully shows off, saying he will deal with them without any problems. She immediately comes up with a brilliant idea, to arrange a real ghost hunting stream, and he will be her protector. She looks at him with those puppy eyes until he agrees, and the chat goes crazy over how casually they plan it. The viewers just go wild, calling it a real horror project with a real researcher. Someone in the chat immediately suggests playing hide and seek alone the infamous creepy ritual. Meanwhile, another viewer raises the stakes and demands that they try some dangerous summoning spells because, of course, it can't be without that. Botan explains that he is not a psychic, but chat's convinced him that everything will be safe, so he just agrees to help. He only sighed and fully resigned himself to his fate to be the one who hits ghosts in their streams. But Aika sharply brings them back to reality, saying that first they need to focus on getting through this horror game. Sudden flashback, Botan emphasizes that this entire horror collab was her idea from the very beginning. The screen flashed white, as if the thought was lost. He clearly did not expect things to turn out this way. Then we see someone frantically typing this is a hint at a time skip, and drama is already brewing online. On the forum, fans were guessing where Botan was supposedly. After the collab, he went into the dungeon for a week, when suddenly a new post appeared with news. Botan officially tweeted that he returned from the dungeon. The next comment showed that he immediately stepped on a social media mine and is being torn apart in the comments, and another user is simply stunned, asking how one can return from the dungeon and instantly cause a scandal. And the scene shifts to a new character, wandering a dark street and lamenting how everything got so out of control. And we see him on the couch, phone in hand, sweating from the huge internet storm he caused. Here is what all the fuss is about. He just tweeted that on the way home from the dungeon, he saved a homeless cat. And now he looks at his phone, completely bewildered by the insane reaction he is getting. Scrolling through his phone, he suddenly sees shocking news about the virtual idol Yuta. This idol, Irohane Yuta, seems to be in critical condition. She is not an ordinary person. She is a true superstar with over 1 million followers, a titan of the industry. But a terrible misfortune befell her, shaking the entire streaming world. Scrolling through the headlines, Botan keeps encountering rumors about his death and details of the accident. It turned out to be a fall down the stairs that left her completely unconscious. Her fans on the internet are simply going crazy and demanding answers from her team, who remain silent. Sitting back on the couch, Botan admits that he is genuinely stunned. Previously, he had only seen her in clips. Suddenly a clarity flashed in his gaze, as if he connected all the dots. He finally understands. While attacks are raining down on him due to misunderstandings, she is the one who really needs help. The problem is this: as the useful picture aptly shows, he and that other streamer are not officially connected at all. He understands why people are angry if he were dying. His fans would riot if a rival used the healing elixir on a cat instead of him. Our guy screams in panic that he has no idea, and a barely alive cat literally fell on him. Just then his phone started ringing, pulling him out of the spiral. And on the caller ID appeared the name, none other than Hanabi Rika. He picks up the receiver and she immediately asks, "Do you have a minute to talk?" Meanwhile, she tries to tame her chaotic favorite and simultaneously assures him that she is fine. She explained that she called because she was worried that this whole cat scandal might explode. Botan just lost her mind. She says that hatred on the internet hurts less than a monster's bite. These people see no prospects at all. Hanabi seems to have come up with something. She says that if her memory serves her right, she might have a solution. Hanabi anxiously explains on the phone that Aika is secretly pulling strings to help the wounded idol Yuta. And she drops a shocking news. Aika and Yuta were actually friends in previous lives, even before they became streamers. Button's brain short-circuited when he learned about the secret world of Vtuber identities and their connections to real life. Because in this industry, there is a huge wall between the streamer and the person behind the screen. For big companies, hiring a complete stranger is like throwing money away. They only take proven professionals. So they usually poach talents from other platforms, people who already have their own audience and experience. She points out that because of this, both she and the bot are strange exceptions who were hired without any influence. Hanabi says that for the sake of that old friendship, she decided to intervene, even if it gets dirty. She explains that Aika found herself in a difficult situation. She sincerely wants to help her friend, but cannot just approach Batten and ask for the saving potion. And our guy listens. He understands that Aika is too proud to ask for help, even when a friend is in critical condition. Hanabi shows a peace sign, joking that her streamer persona is too kind to address a colleague with such a selfish request. Button just smiles. He doesn't mind intervening a bit and asks her to pass on one message. The hero we need, with a cat on his shoulder, confidently tells her, "Tell Ika that I'm already on the case." Hanabi is completely touched by his instant readiness to rush to help without any questions. Of course, his cool moment was instantly spoiled by the cat that jumped on his face just when he was trying to be a hero. Meanwhile, Hanabi struggles with the agitated pet and sincerely says that this whole plan is not working at all. While Botan is being teased, she says that the cat is probably just hungry and needs milk. Easy. Suddenly, a light bulb goes off in his head. He quickly grabs a baby bottle and thanks her for the advice that saved a life, or at least saved face. And so, the tiny demon of chaos peacefully drank from the bottle. Problem solved. Botan finally catches a moment of peace, now cuddling the calmed kitten and sighing loudly with relief. When the kitten finally calmed down, Botan picked up the phone again, time to deal with the consequences. Because he was just called into the office now, he will have to have a very serious talk about all this online drama. He heads to Diggy Grass, his talent agency. It's time to go and face the music business head-on. 2 days have passed since the incident, and the internet fire is still burning. So our guy enters the main office, carrying a cat carrier, ready for a serious conversation with the management. He immediately sees someone waiting for him, and this person also looks a bit surprised. It turned out to be his manager. He immediately apologizes for dragging her into this mess so early. She leads him to the conference room and tells him to wait there until the president arrives. But then she notices how his little companion asks if that is the star cat causing all this commotion. This manager instantly melts, completely enchanted by the cute little agent of chaos. Botan is a bit confused by her sudden interest and, stammering, apologizes for bringing it with him. He says that the kitten is still too small to leave it unattended, and she notes how tiny it is in real life. The plan is simple: leave the carrier on the floor during the meeting, and the cat, it seems, is not bothered at all. But the manager woman refuses to agree. She says she won't ignore such cuteness. She is a true cat fan. And the kitten just soaks up everything around, smiling as if to say, "Now this place is mine." She connects the dots and asks if he likes cats, because his icon on Discord is a cat. But her mood instantly changes when she says how terrible it is that people on the internet attack this tiny creature. Botan's face darkened with agreement. He called their behavior completely unforgivable. Clinging to the chair, he recalls angry comments demanding a potion for their idol, not for the stray. Looking out the window, he quietly told the manager that he understands why they are angry and can just take all the criticism himself. He assures that he can withstand any heat, but as soon as the kitten peeked out, it became clear there is one thing he cannot forgive. Because honestly, this whole situation just drives him mad with rage. He has already been called a fraud and a criminal, and on the internet they even advised, "Die, it's just another Tuesday." Our guy has heard all this for years, so he is already quite used to the online crowds of haters. And it was all simple. He pushed boundaries and took risks, and he fully agreed with that. This time everything is completely different. He will never let this go. Now they are not just attacking him, they are sending death threats to a tiny innocent kitten. And even worse, they're tarnishing Yuta's name just to justify their furious rage. Simply. At that moment the door opened, and the company president entered the room along with two other people. His manager lets out a terrible sharp breath, clearly not expecting what she sees. Button stands on his feet, bowing so low that he almost folds in half, formally apologizing. He raises his head, completely confused and ready to face any punishment from the management. The guy immediately starts apologizing for causing such a huge mess, trying to stay calm. But the president simply introduces the newcomers Yuta's manager and the guy from the legal department. Button awkwardly introduces himself, still stunned by this sudden meeting where everything is at stake. Then that lawyer begins to bow and sincerely apologize to him, and this only confuses everyone even more. Our guy is just completely confused and doesn't understand at all what the hell is going on here. He looks into the carrier and asks the kitten if it really scares these people that much. And the cat simply gives him that cheeky little smile, as if saying, "Yes, that's exactly right, without a doubt." Meanwhile, a news report flashes on the screen. The company has released an official statement about the incident. They publish a joint statement, essentially a corporate version of "shut up or face a lawsuit," a classic PR move. Botan just watches as the official announcement comes out, completely calm and indifferent, as if it's just another ordinary Tuesday. In reality, he has a terribly confident smile on his lips. He thinks that the fans' anger actually works in his favor, but his face hardens. It becomes clear that this was his plan from the very beginning. He is not just reacting, he is orchestrating everything and his next move is an important stream announcement that instantly turns his chat into a real nightmare for the moderators. The screen lights up with a live broadcast, and the main event begins instantly. His avatar appears, fully suited, formally introduces himself, and then drops a bombshell. He just stands for a second, allowing the hype in the chat to build up while everyone spams that they were waiting just for him. The chat instantly turned into a solid wall of messages, begging him to save Yuta, completely ignoring everything else. He looks at the sea of comments and thinks to himself, "Yes, I expected this, but it's still a special kind of hell." Even some sainter viewers openly say how toxic this chat is and thank the moderators for their thankless work. The bot becomes more and more focused. One type of comment just drives him crazy. These are the confident demands of fans who act as if he is personally responsible for Yuta's life just because they are both streamers. In his mind, he divides them into two groups, concerned trolls and openly angry ones, both equally unbearable. Our guy is just boiling because everyone is yelling at him to name Yuta, and that is a huge violation of streamer ethics. Finally, he spoke, and everyone again turned their attention to that tweet that started it all about the cat. Suddenly he becomes serious, points his finger, and says there are comments he simply cannot ignore. He says he can withstand any pressure, but slander and threats against a tiny innocent kitten are unforgivable. He exposes the haters who are just angry because they don't like him and use that as a cover to pour out their usual filth. But the chat, with its endless wisdom, only insists even more stubbornly, stop talking about the cat and finally turn to Yuta. He just sits and watches as the chat flies by and bitterly notes that the speed and content are just as toxic as before. And his avatar calmly concludes, for people like them, the only option left is to sue. Addressing the audience, he sincerely admits, he understands that this is just a small, noisy part of the fandom that is going crazy. But he clenches his fist, decided. He still has to endure this because it is for their own good. And then he drops a bomb, raises a stack of legal requests to expose the accounts behind the worst threats. We move on to one of the trolls who just found out that he is being doxxed, and a police report has already been filed against him. This guy and his mom are just in panic. He thought he could just pour out hatred without any consequences. On the stream, Botan's avatar smirked and said that he was silent only because dealing with them is a total hassle. He leans toward the camera with a creepy look and says, "Let all the haters tremble, Vtubers are not their punching bags." The chat instantly filled with deleted messages while moderators slowly cleared them out, and someone threw in, "He officially snapped." Even more viewers froze. The sudden shift in tone stunned them. They ask, why did he suddenly become so frighteningly cold? While the great message purge is ongoing, one fan simply watches as a real brawl unfolds among the anti-fans. With a chilling smile, Botan warns them that if they receive a letter in the mail, they better be ready to pay. He directly points at the viewers, promising to show them the real price of their behavior on the internet. And then one of the trolls receives an envelope from his mom, and his face instantly pales. Here is the official legal document demanding the disclosure of his personal data. The consequences have already arrived. Back on the stream, Botan stands silently. It has become crystal clear that he was not bluffing. This troll completely loses it, smashing the keyboard in a pitiful outburst of rage and sorrow. His tone instantly changes. He floods the chat with apologies, assuring that he only wanted to help Yudi. But Barton gives him nothing, and the guy screams at the monitor, begging for any kind of recognition. This troll just stared at the screen, completely broken after those threats from the lawyers he just received. But Barton's avatar is not ready yet, and he calmly says in the chat, "This kind of behavior is exactly my goal." And our keyboard warrior completely loses his mind, crying bitterly, because now real consequences are knocking at the door. Suddenly, a tiny meow from the kitten's cage tore Barton away from his epic villain monologue. He instantly breaks character on the stream, apologizes. His kitten urgently needs milk, a real crisis moment. His avatar just slyly smiles, and everyone in the chat unanimously agrees. Yes, the cat's needs come first. And so our guy, right in the middle of all the hustle, starts feeding the kitten from a bottle, completely abandoning his courtroom battle. This little agent of chaos is simply blissfully happy, full of milk, and completely unaware of the drama he caused. But Botan just smiles, calls the boy a little glutton, and all that fear instantly dissolves. He leans back, completely exhausted, admitting that the whole courtroom showdown was just a warm-up. Returning to the stream, his avatar explains that it was just a small warning shot before he moves on to the main topic with that. When the kitten finally calms down, Botan gathers his strength, knowing he can no longer keep the viewers waiting. His avatar pops up again and cheerfully says, "Sorry for the wait. This sudden change of tone is simply legendary." Finally, he spoke about the situation with Yuta and even added an overlay showing, "The kitten is eating now." Having read the chat, he confidently states that he has full permission from both agencies to talk about this delicate topic. His first argument is a huge mistake. He does not know at all what state Utah is really in. He asks everyone to wait for official updates from her company, and the chat seems to agree for now. Taking everything into account, he says he will now explain exactly what he, as a streamer, intends to do. And then he kind of dropped a bomb. He says directly, "Honestly, I can't help her at all." That troll watching from home sighed with relief, thinking he was finally safe. But the troll is already back in action, pounding the keyboard and demanding to know why Barton doesn't want to help. And the rest of the chat unanimously picks it up, ready to chip in for the potion, no matter its price. Barton's avatar calmly acknowledges their anger and admits he understands why they are angry. Because in theory, he has a potion that could probably cure her completely. But then he threw a harsh truth in their face. There is a huge difference between what asterisk might be and what asterisk is legally. He explains that he is legally forbidden to just give away the potion because of all the laws passed after dungeons first appeared. The kitten continues to suck milk, completely indifferent, and Botan promises to give them a quick and rough summary. He launches an explanation and vividly categorizes the dungeon items into 3 main categories. First come the items that can be freely traded, for example, monster parts, which, as it turned out, are even accepted at the local fish market. There are things for which the deal must be overseen by government officials, and they literally have flags instead of heads. And finally, things that the authorities simply confiscate. Potions fall into the last 2 groups. So every time a researcher obtains a potion, by law they must report it to the Researchers Association. Then they will have to choose, keep it for themselves and register it in their name or sell it. If they decide to sell, the state will either buy it directly or it will go to a state auction, and the prices there are simply insane. This explainer made it clear that simply giving away the potion is not an option, and the chat was in complete shock. Adding to the bureaucratic nightmare, using a potion on another person is considered a medical act, and this is a legal gray area. There is an ironclad, inviolable rule. Outside the dungeon, potions can only be administered by licensed medics. Although exceptions are sometimes made, unfortunately, Yuta's current situation does not qualify for them. If she is admitted to a hospital, only a doctor will be able to treat her. No one else has the right to do so. It all comes down to one thing. Only Yuta's family can deliver the potion to her doctors, so Botan can do absolutely nothing. Laughing, his avatar admits that after all this drama, he just can't stay on the sidelines. And in the real world, he has already told Yuta's family that he can consult, and that's final. His avatar bows deeply to end the stream, and the chat frantically shouts his name. And with the stream over, Button sits in the dark, ready to get to work, the baby bottle, of course, at the ready. Suddenly, the camera switches to a new guy bursting through the door, swearing to help find a way around the paperwork. With a smug smile, he says the plan is to keep everything quiet for now, because the operation officially starts. Later on the train, he was scrolling through his phone, and news about the war between Button and the haters spread like wildfire. His warning shot worked even better than he expected. He already sees the slander dying down. The train pulls into the station, and he steps onto the platform. It's clear he's on a mission. Searching for his contact in the noisy crowd, he suddenly sees a woman with long hair and simply freezes in surprise. She turns to him and politely says, "Excuse me," to catch his attention amid the bustling station at that very moment. It seems this woman recognizes his voice. Realization flashes across her face. Confirmed they have found each other, their secret meeting has now officially begun. Turns out she is Ikika, a first-generation Vtuber and his senior in the industry. They agree that using their Vtuber nicknames in public is a terrible idea, so they decide to switch to their real names. So she finally introduces herself for real, Sira Futaba, her real name. And suddenly our mysterious man says his name, Yasukura Shishio, and it turns out this is also Batten's real name. Botan just stands for a moment, running through this whole secret agent-style meeting in his head. He thinks she is exactly as he imagined, beautiful, elegant, and with some motherly charm. The flashback leads to a work call where streamers are excited about her holy mother image, but Botan thinks his real impression is quite different. In his thoughts, he classifies her as the classic older sister character from a dating sim, a true target for conquest. Suddenly, he makes a full 90-degree bow and sincerely apologizes for dragging her to such a crowded place. But the guilt is felt by her. She knows he is risking himself only to help Yuri. Button decided to end the awkward pause and go straight to the point. He needed her help. She claims that this connection is a complete coincidence. She got involved only after the girlfriend of one of the colleagues pronounced his name. Our guy is simply shining. He is delighted that the first-generation legend from the big agency still cares about a friend's problems. Her expression changed. She clearly did not expect such a sincere, almost admiring reaction from him. And that sincere praise just shut down her brain. She blushed and started stammering, completely confused. Everything turned upside down when she began bowing to the audience and became completely embarrassed by the attention they attracted. He practically begged her to stop, insisting that there was no need for this humiliating show at all. Realizing that they were already making a scene, he sharply grabbed her by the hand and said they had to go right now. And they just shuffle through the station in the most awkward silence imaginable, a true masterclass in social anxiety. He just presses his hand to his face from wild cringe, and she worries that her thank you gift ruined everything. Here is a masterclass in communication. Our guy hurriedly explains, it's not her, it's him. He is simply completely defenseless in front of sincere gratitude. And suddenly it dawns on her. He is not angry, he is just paralyzed by shame because of sincerity. She is simply begging for any kind of reaction because his silent breakdown truly frightens her. She grabs his sleeve and suggests he try a specific line from another VTuber to break the ice. Her producer brain joins in, and she suddenly starts suggesting he take on the image of a shy guy, insisting that her audience will love it. She is now lost in thought, comparing him to another streamer known for spending a lot of money on gacha games. Finally, she simply admits that she was making excuses. She is a fan and wanted to hear his voice, then immediately apologizes for her emotional outburst. After her fan outburst, Sierra immediately becomes serious and says they need to hurry for Yuta's sake. Her thoughts immediately return to their friend, who is in trouble. She anxiously asks if Yuta can even be saved, confessing that it seems a real miracle is needed for that. But Botan calmly says, if a miracle is needed, he is the one who will create it. Her entire behavior changes. She admits that his confidence is much more reliable than just prayers for help. Suddenly fired up, she grabbed his hand and pulled him along, leaving Barton completely stunned. Inside, he panics. She turned out to be unexpectedly strong, and holding hands is too intense for him. A crazy run led them to a huge modern building that was clearly not a cafe. He is completely confused and asks if they were not supposed to meet near the hospital. She just smiles and explains that this cafe is located right on the hospital grounds. Entering inside, Botan froze in surprise. What luxury here, and admits that he never had a reason to visit a large hospital. Surai tries to get his attention, but our guy is clearly still processing everything happening around him. He simply admires this technology, admitting that he was so healthy that he never had to see such a place inside. Suddenly, everything becomes clear to her, and she realizes with amazement, despite being a researcher, he was never seriously injured. A quiet moment passes between them as they stand in the dazzling white corridor. And he just laughs awkwardly, while she wonders what caused that strange pause. Brushing it off, he says it's nothing, and we are shown a flashback where he was simply destroyed, yet he reduces everything to supposedly dying several times. Changing tone, she gave a thumbs up, agreeing that it's incredibly convenient to have a meeting place right on the hospital grounds. Walking down the corridor, she suddenly notices their contact and points it out to Botan. A woman with tired eyes and hair tied in a bun turns around and immediately recognizes Sierra. Sierra introduces them, presenting Botan to Yuta's mother, Mado Kayako, as an energetic researcher. The mother immediately bows low and, as is proper, introduces herself. She is insanely grateful that he is ready to lend her his strength and thanks him again and again for the help. Botan, a professional as always, gently asks her to lift her head and smilingly says he is glad to meet her. It turns out Yuta is friends with one of Sierra's senior students, and this whole connection is a crazy coincidence. Barton, noticing that they are blocking the corridor, suggests finding a place to sit and talk properly. 1. As soon as they settled in the cafe, Sierra picks up the lid and says they need to review the situation. Button wastes no time asking about Yuta's condition and reassures that life is not in danger yet. Her mother confirms this, explaining that Yuta was just outside with friends when the accident happened. It seems she was exhausted from overwork and simply fainted while going down the stairs. Sierra suddenly puts everything together, recalling that Yuta participated the day before in a huge tournament of games for her agency. It seems to me that the time of her fainting during the previous nosebleed is too convenient for Botan. Something is not right here. Fortunately, the paramedics acted quickly, and the potion was found. It is the only reason why Yuta is still alive. A quick hint says that even simple potions help in trouble, but all of them are controlled by power, Yuta's mother. The mother clasps her hands, explaining that her daughter is still stable for now. The fall completely immobilized her. She just lay there, completely motionless. And then, like a blow to the stomach, she is paralyzed from the neck down due to spinal cord injury. Yuta is conscious, her mother says, but communicating with her is difficult. The conversation does not go smoothly at all. She can drink liquid food, but the unspoken heavy burden hangs in the air while the mother's hands tremble. She finally broke down in sobs. Her daughter's body is broken, and the doctors say the chances of recovery are almost zero. Sierra tries to comfort Yuta's mother. She is completely shattered after this news about the diagnosis. She desperately checked all options because she knew true hope is only in the potion. But all that search led to only one thing, a discovery that broke the soul, complete and utter despair. To have any chance of full recovery, Yuta needs a potion of the highest grade, one that is essentially a myth. Botan listens gloomily. This confirms what he already knew. Only a potion of the highest grade will help. And here before us is an object of divine level, a potion that instantly restores even severed limbs. The useful diagram clearly says, it fixes almost everything if only you are not yet in the coffin. Because of its insane power, only a few researchers can find even one, and almost no one agrees to sell it. Even if it's surfaced, it can only be obtained through a government auction, and they have already taken that into account. Mom says they even talked to the Utah agency, but the required amount is simply beyond imagination. Button throws out the price tag. Bidding would start at 5 billion yen, and that's still on the low end, with an asterisk. Feeling the full weight of her situation, he gently takes her hand to calm her. He tells them he promises nothing, but will do absolutely everything in his power to help. First, he asks to see Yuta and insists, first we need to find out what she wants, and only then plan anything. The mother simply agrees, a little stunned by his straightforwardness and determination. 3 walked down the sterile hospital corridor, and the mood was heavy and silent. Yuta's mother loudly announced by the door that they had come and were entering so that the daughter would know. Suddenly flashback, Yuta as a Vtuber, happy and energetic, joyfully greeting her fans. Sierra looks with pain in her eyes, remembering her friend as she once was. Another memory floods in, Yuta on stage, singing with all her heart, completely lost in the music. Barton solemnly says that he is Yaskura, Yuta's junior colleague, and finally we see her Yuta. She lies in a hospital bed, completely broken and unconscious. This scene returns to the memory of her bright Vtuber self, reaching out with such passion that. Then the shot returns to the oppressive reality as the group enters her silent room. Botan pulls up a chair and gently calls her real name Yazakura. Then he clarifies, maybe she knows him better by his streamer nickname Yame Nashibot. Botan, Yuda's weekly replies, asking to be called by her real name Yana. Suddenly Botan's eye lit up, one of his skills activated without any warning. It turns out his unique ability Ajna, which seems to cover the room with a psychic net. Through this power he hears her first simple thought, just a barely audible ah. Then she thought, his videos where he cooks look incredibly delicious, there are your priorities, right from the hospital bed. This guy just froze stunned and silent, while Yana thanked him for watching her stream. The girl's mother asked in shock if he really can read her daughter's thoughts, and Barton calmly confirmed that he has a perception skill. He quickly reassures Ayana, saying he only reads surface thoughts to preserve her privacy, and it sounds strangely professional. When that was settled, Botan asked for a minute alone with Yana. They need to discuss everything. He hands Siri and her mother a gift box and asks them to watch over it while he talks a bit. Both looked puzzled at the get-well gift, and he explained, it's food from the dungeon that spoils quickly. Our guy wants to grate it and feed her immediately, saying it's incredibly beneficial for her health. In the box is a huge glowing immortal peach, a legendary item that restores strength. Mama was completely moved by this gesture, but Botan simply says that the skin can be eaten and prepares to serve it. When mind reading started working, Barton says to Anya, just think about what you want to say and I will catch it. She is a little embarrassed, points with her finger as if she wants to make sure how this telepathic thing works at all. After a short test run, he confirms that she has already mastered their new extrasensory hotline. He smiled reassuringly and told her not to worry if it feels a little strange at first. He even repeats his privacy policy. He only reads surface thoughts, so there is no need to be shy. This simple gesture of communication just broke her. She begins to sob with relief. This instantly made our guy panic. He wondered if he accidentally triggered some emotional mine. She mentally explains that she is just incredibly happy finally. She can talk normally with someone again. And Botan just understands. His face becomes serious when he realizes her despair. Her thoughts darkened. She remembered the moment when she realized that all simple things suddenly became impossible. And it is even harsher because her whole life and career is to be a Vtuber. Her entire rapid image is her talkativeness, and the stress from the thought that she might lose it simply suffocates her. She apologizes for derailing the conversation, and Botan gently says that it's not a problem at all. Squatting down to be at her level, he says that of course she is anxious, anyone would be. Then, as if nothing happened, he drops a traumatic bomb. He says he understands parts of his body have simply disappeared before he even started checking if he still had his mind. He recalls how once his hand was completely hopeless, and he just cut it off to be safe. Anna was, understandably, horrified by this. Turning the conversation away from that incredibly gloomy tangent, he finally moves on to what he really wanted to say. He explains that even after that nightmare with the star, he stands right in front of her, fully recovered and alive. With a huge, sincere smile, he asks if that feeling gives her even a little hope. But her hope immediately melts. She says he recovered from a potion she cannot obtain. Botan waves a finger, saying that's not quite true, and Anna looks completely confused. Diving into a brief lesson about how items in dungeons are a chaotic bag of wild possibilities. Imagine there are magic beans that restore you in water and instantly heal you, as if video game logic became reality, and scrolls that simply from thin air give you new powerful skills. And even magical things that give you strange abilities just by wearing them. With a mysterious look, he says that the dungeons probably contain everything you have ever wished for or needed. He says to her with a gentle smile, it is not yet time to give up. Yana is just lying there, still looking broken and unsure if she will dare to believe him at all. Botan admits that saying don't give up is a cliché, but in this case, the miracle is something you yourself have to do for it to happen. And he leans closer with a confident smile and says it is for one simple reason. If she is not serious at all in wishing for this miracle, his own motivation to create it will simply completely fade away. This causes her to laugh lightly, and she admits he is indeed right. And just at the right moment, her mother flies back in and joyfully announces, magical super peaches all sorted and ready for shipment. She suggests pausing this heated conversation for a minute so that Yana can finally eat properly. Mother gently brings a spoon with food, trying to persuade her to eat despite her hesitation. Yana finally dares to take a tiny, cautious bite of the glowing fruit puree. Slowly chewing, she probably expects little from everything served in the hospital. But her eyes open wide. This is not just real, it is incredibly tasty. Standing in the doorway, Sierra and another girl watch this scene and do not understand at all what is happening. And Anna suddenly gasps, touching her throat, when she realizes that she can really speak again. And it is not just her voice. Yana suddenly realizes, with a shudder, that her hands are really moving. She sits in bed, looks at her fingers, and cannot understand at all what is happening. At the threshold, Sierra is a complete mess of tears and shock. She stammers, not believing her eyes at all. And Anna's mother runs in and hugs her daughter, sobbing with incredible joy. Sierra is still frozen in place, hands pressed to her mouth. She is completely stunned by this sudden miracle. Meanwhile, Button simply smiles peacefully and indifferently says that it seems a miracle has just happened. This instantly captures Sierra's attention. She grabs him and shouts that he is the one behind it. But with a smug smile, he insists that he just brought a gift and came to talk nothing more. She did not buy his fake "I did nothing" at all, not even for a second. And here comes a brief explanation about the immortal peach, a famous, though rare, dungeon food. Because of its value, it even comes with a state certificate from an official appraiser. The appraisal skill allows them to scan the item and instantly see everything about it, like in the Pokédex. Of course, how much information you get entirely depends on the appraiser's skill. On a convenient diagram, it is visible. If your skill is too low, you get nothing, but if it is higher, all details open before you. So the certificate basically says, the expert was strong enough to recognize this is a genuine immortal peach. It is publicly known that it provides full recovery, but they say there are some unknown effects besides this. It forces the government to treat it as if it were a new kind of potion that must be strictly controlled. For now, it has simply been classified as a super powerful traditional medicine funny, to say the least. It turned out that the first appraiser could not even read all the item's recovery effects without receiving a charge from its power. In Sierra's room, who always follows the rules, asks if this is even legal after all. Giving potions to others is a big taboo. Button smugly. He explains with a self-satisfied smile, if the peach effect exceeded the official certificate, then it is the appraiser's mistake, not his. He cheerfully raises his big thumb up and says, no problem, while Sierra looks like she's about to have an aneurysm. She immediately exposes him and says, this is clearly a dubious trick that no one will acknowledge. But he just waved off her worries about legal problems, literally dismissing the very idea of consequences, explaining with a knowing look that such glitches sometimes just happen because the number of official appraisers is artificially kept low, the skill scrolls they need are simply extraordinarily rare. So in this particular situation, since no one lost money, he can just pretend to be stupid and get away completely unpunished. Which makes Sierra dryly state, a miracle happened, and they are simply advised to ignore the mountain of suspicious details. His casual laughter makes her ask if he has done such tricks before he knows all the system's loopholes too well. And he just laughs even louder, as if directly admitting he is a repeat offender and probably created half of the legal precedents himself. Suddenly changing the subject, he said that looking for a miracle is a futile task and waved his hand for them to leave. Inside, Anna and her mother, with tears in their eyes, embrace tightly, while Sierra feels like she is intruding on their private moment. Button simply waved it off. I'll call the association, and the doctor I'll report this little malfunction. They asked Sierra to stay, and together with Yana and her mother, decide what to do next, and this left her completely confused. At the door, he gently reassures her one last time. There was no crime, so she has nothing to worry about. Because when a popular VTuber is involved, public envy is a completely legitimate, though nasty, side effect. And here her VTuber persona Yuta sits alone under the spotlight, her talent on display for everyone. While many fans will celebrate her miraculous recovery with unrestrained joy and wild support, others will be insanely angry, ready to metaphorically burn her at the stake because of her luck. And she will be treated like a criminal. Fingers will point, baseless accusations will echo around. This is the dark side of fame. Sierra sweats and reluctantly admits that she really cannot deny his opinion about the inevitable public drama. Button says it's better to talk about such problems as early as possible before they get out of control. She suddenly sees the association is about to drag him in for interrogation, and he just stands there silently accepting it. He lays out the options before her, either immediately return to the stream, fully aware of the consequences, or simply say that she has recovered, wait until the noise subsides, and maybe quietly walk away. But in the end, he says that the choice is neither his nor anyone else's. Now everything is in the hands of Yana and her family. It is up to them to decide what happens next. Sierra immediately grasped everything and promised to deliver the message to them. Having done his part, Button casually waved his hand and prepared to leave. But Sierra stops him and asks herself, what, as Asterisk says, should Anna do in this situation? He pauses for a moment, realizing that he was the one who saved her and caused this mess. His first reaction is simple, let her do whatever she wants until she stops herself. Sierra is completely confused by his sudden hesitation and asks why he started doubting it. Because he says directly, the one he set out to save turned out not to be Yana, it was the VTuber Yuta. He explains, Rika told him how upset Sierra was, and his entire motivation is to see her smile again. This revelation literally short-circuited her brain. She is stunned and completely speechless. The diagram clearly shows that Sierra and Yana were merely acquaintances from work, not close friends. When a big streamer gets into trouble, other well-known talents are expected to come together to resolve the consequences. If rescue could be bought with money, the agency would have already arranged crowdfunding or sold merch to raise funds for it. And this essentially means when everything is reduced to the most important thing. Button speaks frankly, he was only concerned about her recovery and he didn't even think about anything else. Memories surface back to his first debut, how she and other seniors always watched over and protected him. With a confident smile, he said that all this wonder is simply his way of repaying the favor. Sierra was left completely speechless, as if her brain had entirely left the building. She stammers, mumbling that this is a bit too much for a favor, and he just raises an eyebrow and asks if she is really that surprised. Everything is attributed to one simple fact. With a charming smile, guys just love pretending they are cool. Her mouth simply hung open, she still couldn't utter a single word. Until she finally blushed and admitted, yes, he is definitely cool and she is completely falling for him. Mission accomplished, Botan quickly thanks and turning back, says he will get in touch again, but as soon as he steps out the door, his cool mask crumbles and he runs away, blushing intensely because of his banal phrases. Sierra remained alone in the corridor, still trying to recover from this continuous emotional shock, allowing a long, exhausted sigh escaped, before bursting into loud laughter and calling him a real trickster for such a stunt. At that moment, Barton heard a commotion in the corridor. Someone was loudly demanding to know what was going on here. A hand grabbed him by the shoulder, but our guy just turned around with such a confident expression, as if saying, well, well, well. This is a cop named Tamaki. He is simply furious, shouting that Barton's pulled this nonsense again. Barton just smiled cheerfully and praised him for coming so quickly. And he is immediately pulled by the hoodie, while he looks as if this is just a minor inconvenience. In the room, Sierra just looks completely emotionless. Her face reads, of course, this was bound to happen. While Barton is being dragged away, he only repeats that all he ever wanted was to see his senpai's smile. Sierra is simply blushing and completely confused. She fell so hard for his image of a cool guy. And when he runs away, blushing, it only makes everything worse, and she calls him a real swindler for being so cunningly sly. Back in the room, Yana asks where Botan has gone, sharply pulling Sierra out of her daydreams. Who? He explains that he is going to inform the authorities about the anomaly and call a doctor, and this shocks them both. Yana's mother tries to run away, insisting that she cannot allow him to take on household chores, but Sierra physically stops her. She peeks from the door and assures that she can handle the calls herself, and calling the doctor is just a convenient excuse. Instead, Sierra insists they need to use this private moment to figure out what to do next. Yana looks back at her and for the first time calls Sierra by her real name Futaba. Her first question, full of sincere worry, will Botan be arrested because of all this, you see? Sierra only smiled softly and assured that everything is fine. Our guy said so himself, so Anna calmed down. But Ian is still worried, not knowing if he will return soon, and Sierra can only trust that everything will be okay. Yana, with a determined look, clenches her bandaged fist. It is clear that she has something planned. Suddenly she explodes. She realizes that she hasn't even properly thanked him, and now practically has to fall at his feet out of gratitude. Gently taking her hand, Sierra whispered that she should think about the future for now, and they will think about this when he returns. Yana is tormented by guilt. It seems wrong to her to put herself first after he has done so much for her. And Sierra only smiles, as if reminding her that Botan told them to do exactly that. This deeply impresses Anna. She understands that he still cares about her, and she is completely confused. On a convenient diagram, it was visible her attachment indicator to Botan simply exploded and flew beyond all limits. His banal pickup lines worked a real miracle. Sierra looks with a knowing smile. She feels that she understands this feeling too well. And Anna confesses she was saved for free from lifelong despair. Well, who wouldn't succumb to that? Cyro immediately begins enthusiastically telling Iana about Botan, listing his charms one after another: beautiful appearance and wonderful character. She hesitates between calling him cool or cute, while he in the meantime is just a silly guy making a peace sign. Anna only sighs and agrees that he is truly an extraordinarily good person. That is too mild a statement, but Sierra sharply interrupts her, grabs her hand, and says that there is something more important to talk about. Without ceremony, she directly asks Anna what she now intends to do, having recovered. The choice stands: to return to streaming, take a break, or leave the scene altogether. Anna is in complete shock and sharply demands an explanation as to why she should even mention retirement as an option. With tears in her eyes, she insists that she still has so many things she wants to do as a VTuber and that she plans to return. Then Sierra says that this is exactly what she and Barton were just talking about in the corridor. The warning sounds like thunder. If our VTuber character Yuta returns, the internet will simply explode. Aeon is puzzled. She admits she has haters, but does not understand why this time it is so radical. With a gentle smile, Sierra reassures her. Most people will not hate her and will be wildly happy, but there will definitely be a loud minority who will refuse to believe in the miracle and call it a cunning trick. Wild rumors, accusations of crimes, and vile slander from jealous strangers will fall upon them. At the heart of this wave of condemnation will be one poisonous question: why were you the one saved? Knowing all this, Sierra asks if she can still confidently say that she wants to return. Anna is simply stunned and silent. The weight of that terrible reality finally hits her. Meanwhile, Tamaki literally stomps his fist into Botton's skull. He clearly can't take it anymore. Another man tries to calm him down, saying that he is too old to get so upset over a child. And now he is driving and yelling at Botan in the back seat for causing trouble again. Some people never learn. Botan is already rudely insulting the policeman in the car, and the cop just yells at him, "Shut up." This cop is Tamaki Dataru, a senior officer of the elite underground crime investigation unit, in short, a very important person. And the superintendent is too high-ranking to personally give a ride to some boy. And in memory, the chief actually assigned Botan to him as a constant headache he can't get rid of. Tamaki complains that because of Botan, he has gotten too used to being dragged on pointless searches. So he demands to know why our guy decided to cause this particular international incident today. Botan just flashed a dazzlingly innocent smile and declared that a miracle just happened. What's the problem? Tamaki simply explodes, exposing him for pretending to be dumb, although he knows perfectly well Botan has top-notch evaluation skills. This is something the text confirms. His ability to evaluate is so comprehensive that it covers everything. Well, everything is marked with an asterisk. Our guy just shrugged and indifferently said, "So what? For him, it's just another Tuesday." He explains with a smile that the girl who suffered was saved, indeed became famous, and he makes no accusations. The case is closed. Tamaki only groans, realizing that this is a happy ending. No one was hurt, and his job becomes impossible. But as soon as it became known that the miracle peach was sold as a substitute for a special potion, all services exploded with panic. He shouts that an item of such power was sold at the price of expensive groceries. Barton just waved it off. Anyway, only experienced travelers would buy them. With a self-satisfied expression, he lays out his perfect loophole. The effect of the item is judged by the floor it comes from, so all complaints immediately fall silent. A useful dungeon map shows 6 levels from the easy upper floors down to the terrible abyss. Botan, switching to lecture mode, passionately explains that the levels of explorers are directly tied to these floors. These upper floors are essentially for students working part-time and amateurs who just enjoy themselves. But on the middle floors, real pros fight monsters to earn a living. And only elite researchers and heavily armed special units dare to descend to the lower floors. And most importantly, essentially, nobody never goes deeper than this. Because ahead are the deep floors, a refuge for freaks who have practically renounced all humanity. After that come the ultra-deep floors, where our guy casually shows a peace sign, like a tourist, and at the very bottom, an abyss so fierce that even he must become serious to survive. In other words, he always has a perfect excuse for everything. He sternly tells Tamaki, if you're going to pass something off as a potion, it must be at least from the lower floors. And even then, it is only a low-quality equivalent that cannot be stored for long, so it is objectively worse. Maki understands. True pros who go that deep will not carry a fragile peach instead of a real potion. Suddenly jumping up, Botan asks where an item of special rank like this could come from. Of course, from the ultra-deep floors, and whether. And if that were the only problem with the asterisk, everything would be simple, he says with a smile that promises even more headaches. Tamaki simply explodes, grabs him and shouts that he, damn it, knows perfectly well Botan's evaluation skill, immediately recognizes the difference. But our guy just pointed to the rules. It was necessary to write down what was written in the certificate about the skill, which he, of course, did not do at all. So he only had to concoct a plausible story for the official consequences, and bam, the case was closed. Tamaki is about to burst with anger, and Botan cheerfully says, people were helped, so what's the problem? He is simply helping the police fulfill their main goal to protect people. Less suffering is a win for everyone, right? Tamaki roars that the real problem is that he caused an international incident on a whim for the sake of a familiar colleague. But under a mischievous wink, Botin asks what else can you call helping a stranger if not a whim? Completely broken, Tamaki just sighs and asks, what the hell is he going to do now? And Barton just shrugged. His elder was in trouble, a peach was growing nearby, so he grabbed it and that's it. Button just says everything straight as it is. The world will never accept this as something simple. I found a story about a peach. Will it be accepted? With a self-satisfied look, he points out that he actually did not break any law, so what's the problem? Tamaki just groans. He is terribly tired of how this guy skillfully walks on the edge of the law. Better to admit it than to use real smuggling, but still, it's a huge headache for him. Suddenly appearing behind him, Botin boldly asks how many times he took some incomprehensible stuff out of the bag 3-4. He says he has a treasure chest that only he can open. It's like a walking arsenal. To prove his point as if nothing happened, he takes some item out of his pocket. It's a shining pouch, an item that only he can use, and which he filled with all sorts of treats. Tamaki must admit, the bag is crammed full of unregistered junk, but this particular trick was formally legal. But he warns, even if it is legal, public opinion will ignite a real storm of criticism. And then Botin casually asks if he ever told Tamaki about his little side job that he is a Vtuber. Tamaki simply loses his head, telling in raised tones about all the troubles he went through when he debuted under a fake name. Because he is not just a researcher, he is a Vtuber, and Tamaki begs him to quit it immediately. Barton is already on the phone, saying he has a pretty good idea of how all this will unfold. Then he asks about that other person with the asterisk, involved in the Hyana accident, the one who was torn to pieces on the internet. Tamaki is completely confused. Our guy just connected several very awkward dots. Button becomes serious and reminds him that now he is effectively a public figure, whether he wants it or not. And Yana also got into this mess along with him. The headlines are already writing themselves: bribery, illegal deals, and a public trial in the media. Looking out the window, Botin just sighs. This is what happens when an influential person helps someone just on a whim. Tamaki insists that the excuse about a miracle works only once, then the whole world starts shouting that it's a fraud. And Botin just looks out the window and says that he knows perfectly well how the VTuber scene works, knowing that it is full of envious performers who are sure that the whole world revolves around them. That is why Tamaki is so against our guy having any kind of public career. He dreams of one thing, that Barton stays deep in the dungeons, quietly does his job, and never talks to anyone. Instead, on his back seat yawns a living nuclear bomb, and he screams that his reputation is ruined. This cop grumbles, saying that it's just common sense. When a walking disaster like Botin makes a scene, complaints will pour in. Barton leaned forward and explained, since he is already in the spotlight, he might as well solve this problem head-on. His grand plan, proclaimed with an eerily cheerful smile, is simply to keep streaming as if nothing happened. Tamaki clearly doesn't buy it for a second, demanding to know what this is supposed to mean at all. With a shadowy smile, Botin warns he will sue anyone who pursues them to complete oblivion, no mercy. This superintendent just sighs, because he understands. Botin is going to turn the entire legal system into a weapon against internet trolls. Our guy jumps out like a good gremlin and asks if he is finally ready to cooperate. Then with a sly smile, he reminds Tamaki that his job is to follow orders, not to babble about them. This drives Tamaki mad. He shouts, why is police justice needed at all if it is just a tool for this child's drama? Botin's countermove is a vision. He stands over a pile of bodies and, as if joking, asks if this isn't better than him losing it over slander. Completely broken, Tamaki says he doesn't care what happens to Botin, but there is another problem. He asks about that other person who got into this mess. What is his plan to take care of Ian? Our guy just shrugged and said he will handle everything himself, but instead gladly handed her case over to the police. Hooked by the bait, Tamaki agrees to take everything into his own hands, promising to use his most reliable contacts to see the case through. Tamaki calls him a monster in human form, whose whims can literally shake national security. With a smile, Barton says he will accept this gesture for now, and orders the angry policeman to deliver the message. Jumping out of the car, he is completely focused on Ayana's decision and what it means to her. At that moment, his phone vibrated a new message from his elder, Sarah. He instantly opens the chat, eager to find out what she sent him. A confident smile appeared on his face, and with barely concealed self-satisfaction, he said he was retracting his previous words. Sarah's message confirmed everything. IANA publicly declared that she wants to remain a VTuber. She is fully ready for criticism and will not back down. She will not abandon either fans or friends. At the end of the message, her VTuber persona sincerely asks him, "Please give them your support." And now the official announcement appeared. Yuta is returning, and the stream of his return is already scheduled. The scene sharply switches to Botan. He is already in his stream, in VTuber attire, cheerfully greeting the viewers. In his chat, a real waterfall of praise. Everyone thanks the mountain lord for the miracle. He just laughed and joked that he never thought a simple, useful snack could lead to a full recovery. The official story is this. Supposedly, they found an amazing peach with unknown healing powers, and apparently this peach was on top. He almost chuckles, explaining how the Researchers Association was forced to recognize peaches as almost medicine. He honestly admits this whole announcement gave him a huge headache. Meanwhile, another VTuber watches his stream and smiles, saying that Yuta's return is a rare happy ending in their world. Thanks to that incident, his channel simply skyrocketed fame and subscriber count shot up. He thinks this whole saga is so crazy it would make a good book from the accident to the amazing finale. But his chat is already ready to fight, swearing never to forgive the haters who started this. Button sharply put an end to it on his stream. Those who made this mess will definitely be held accountable. Then he asks his chat not to send him money. Their donations are for Yana, so she can come back. He says he is not in trouble at all, just some guy who got caught up in the strange miracle that happened to a friend. Meanwhile, another VTuber involved in the accident, Iro Hajin, is going through her moment. He is in his stream, tightly gripping the microphone, and insists that he has nothing to do with this. Now that the truth has finally come out, he is trying to clear his name. But Botan does not take this at all. He orders his fans to give every last cent they were going to gift him instead to Iani. His chat simply explodes with praise, calling him a hero, and he just blushes and cries from embarrassment. Brushing them off, he tells everyone, get out of his stream and go watch Yuta's comeback. He smiled gently and told them to go and properly welcome their idol at home. And then he reveals his main plan. The whole stream was just a bait to keep everyone occupied. In fact, he is not even watching her stream, just listening while fiddling with his equipment. Because his channel is only about making snacks, and the real show is happening somewhere completely different. His chat immediately sorts everything out. He covers the situation and then takes care of the people. That's a legend. So he announces the real plan for the evening. His asthma when he fries chicken skin for a snack. But he listens with every cell of his body because her stream is about to start. The clock struck exactly 9 in the evening. The time has come. And on her channel, Yuta steps onto the huge stage and asks her fans if they can hear her voice. Botan just smiles. While the chat explodes, he understands that she is starting her comeback with an emotional anime song. He literally wipes away tears as the chat explains that the song is about the miraculous return of a forgotten heroine, and it's the perfect choice. Yuta puts every drop of her soul into this song, as if shouting, "Don't forget me." Her eyes are wide open, pure, sincere determination. She does not back down for a second, and she is on stage a beacon of confidence, letting the whole world know, I am here to stay. The chat in Botan is already breaking everything down and calling this song absolutely perfect for a comeback stream. And the very words of the song literally say, I have returned, to really emphasize it, you know. She commands the viewers to look at her and burn this performance into their memory forever. In his stream, Botan smirks and says that a live performance impresses less than anime, but he gets the point. On his face is an incredibly satisfied smile, and he simply soaks it all in. His chat is simply going crazy over Yuta's performance. They say she is in a completely different dimension. And at the same time, he boasted he just crossed 800,000 subscribers, a nice bonus for causing an international incident. He glanced at the phone, a little embarrassed that the chat suddenly started worrying about him. Then he happily explains that his stream is just background music for her stream while he fries crispy chicken skin. His chat is unimpressed. So he just slammed the lid on the pot, and the chat is roasting him for even pretending like their opinion matters to him. He thinks as if making the move of a supportive guy from the shadows, isn't he? His chat is in complete chaos. Some understand it, others call him tender, but everyone agrees he reliably keeps the risks under control. He grabs a knife and announces that now we are really starting this culinary stream. He calmly heats the sidewalk so much that it literally glows, and his chat just screams in horror. And then, unhurriedly, prepare some ginger and green onions for the pan. He starts cutting ingredients at superhuman speed, and the chat is shocked. Only in the world of Mango is this even possible. It took only a second to leave him embarrassed, even when he insisted, but his chat knows only he could pull that off. So with everything decided, Botan explains what the main event of today's stream is. He reveals that the main ingredient is the skin of a lower-level chicken monster, and his chat is just blown away by its incredible size. Admitting that he dropped it in some sand while collecting it, our guy just quickly washes it off. Viewers in the chat say it's the size of a doormat, and he simply calls it brave cooking and says paper towels are not needed. To make it clear to everyone, he decides to post a photo of the chicken on Twitter. Turns out to be a terrible, gigantic monster like a phoenix, and fans are more scared that he was so calm that he even managed to take a photo. Now that everyone is aware, he asks if they are ready for him to start cooking this nightmare bird. It's simple: throw the skin and some aromatic ingredients into a heated wok and let the fat render out. His chat is shocked at how simple it is, and Botan is just happy that they are catching on. He explains that rendered chicken fat is a real cheat code for incredible ramen and fried rice. The food is already cooking, and he settles in front of the screen to watch Yuta's stream. She is about to perform with a guest. And on her channel, she is already standing on stage with 2 other VTubers and excitedly announces that their next song is a trio. 3 of them instantly took a pose like a real idol group, ready to conquer the stage. Yuta simply electrifies, pouring all her energy into the performance, pulling. She performs incredibly dynamic dance moves, loudly singing the song. Her presence on stage is undeniable. She completely captures the audience's attention. Returning to the kitchen, Barton is completely mesmerized and quietly admits to himself how incredible she is. This performance is called nothing less than stunning. The trio's silhouette was reflected in her burning eyes. He is back at the stove, thoughtfully thinking that the pros have crazy video and sound equipment that he cannot compete with. When suddenly his chat exploded with screams, "Stop, this is dangerous." Turned out the real danger was Barton, who indifferently stuck his hand into boiling oil, and his chat just went crazy. He just laughs cheerfully and explains that an ordinary person would definitely get a serious burn from that. And our guy is completely calm. He says that such heat is not even noticeable to him, to the great horror of his chat. After he so easily showed that fire does not harm him at all, he carelessly pours out the monster's rendered fat. And so he has a flawless bowl of what he calls Tyron's chicken oil, ready to be bottled. He starts guessing how much to ask for it, and the chat mercilessly tears him apart, saying only a fine wine could have such a price. Returning from the walk, he just shrugged and said, "The market will decide the price itself, and meanwhile he will make the snack crispy." His chat still cannot comprehend his wealth, and some simply beg to find out how unrealistically rich he really is. One commentator says, looking at Botan's attitude, it is immediately clear the rumors about his and Yuta's quarrel over money were complete nonsense. But another fan retorts, how can you deny the story when he accidentally gave her an item worth a fortune? Seeing a comment he didn't like, Botan decides, it's time to put all the dots over and before everyone watching. He explains that in the deep dungeons you can find items whose value is literally measured in billions rare metals and legendary potions. Suddenly he becomes completely serious, points at the screen, and declares that this incident has nothing to do with Iroha Jin. He is so fed up with this that he is about to bring down the hammer on the user just for even suggesting it. When the problematic commentator was instantly deleted, he simply smiles and announces that talks about money are officially over. Meanwhile, on her stream, Yuta shines with pure joy, completely immersed in the song. Button, smiling, lifts the ready bowl with fried chicken skin and says he has tasty food and a cool show, so life is just perfect. He proudly serves the last dish, a full plate of crispy golden brown monster skin, AF. One last pinch of salt, and his best snack for the streamer is officially ready. He lifts a piece and loudly declares that the crispy skin is the best part, and the chat unanimously agrees. His chat is just going crazy over the finished product and shouts for someone to bring drinks immediately. At the first bite, Button decides not to complicate things, just a little salt to start. He brings the crispy monster skin to his lips to finally taste it, and in that moment of pure concentration, the whole world around simply disappears. The verdict is in. It is so incredibly crispy and tasty that he just flies high. He excitedly explains how all the excess fat melted away, leaving the perfect juicy crunch. Our guy just can't stop eating, says it's as light as a chip, while his chat meanwhile enjoys his heavy breathing. With a sly smile, he turns away from the camera for a second. Then he takes out the perfect companion for the fried dish, an ice-golden can of beer. He opens it with a pleasant hiss, a sign that the real party is about to start. This combination is pure bliss, he exclaims, while the chat calls him a food terrorist for the temptation. He takes a sip and warns the viewers, don't copy me, my body, is superhuman. To be clear, he could drink liters of pure grain alcohol and not die for him. It was just another Tuesday. Next, he dips a piece into the spicy sweet sauce and says the taste is simply criminal. It seems a bit of green onion on top, and here is another foolproof combination. He is just enjoying himself, gulping beer and chewing fried skin, a true king on the throne. Then he simply and confidently says that expensive spirits are not necessarily the best choice for every dish. Indeed, he has a cellar full of priceless alcohol at home, made from dungeon offspring. But this moment is about something else entirely. He insists, holding up his simple tin can. He says when the food is so delicious, its flavor alone is incredibly strong and assertive. He clenches his fist and says with tension that the taste of such strength will simply crush all the weaker ones. And trying to balance this with some trendy drink is just wasting the entire flavor potential of this dish. At such a moment, he says without hesitation that a simple can of beer is the absolute perfect combination. His chat like a sponge soaks this up while he explains, as long as it tastes good, nothing else matters. Meanwhile, on her stream, Yuta sings at the top of her lungs like an angel and shines with happiness. It just makes Button smile. He says the most important thing is to enjoy the food, the drink, and the moment itself. The pile of empty cans grows, and he stubbornly insists that bringing anything else to the party is complete nonsense. But suddenly he froze something on his laptop, completely threw him off track. An incoming call suddenly lit up on his screen, and he has no idea who it could be. Somewhere else, someone is wildly pounding on the keyboard, diving into the legends of this business. A thread exploded on the forum. A new fan asks how incredibly strong Button really is. These answers are essentially a report on a national security threat. He is an army in one body. He should not be a VTuber. Others already call him a true savior for how he skillfully arranged a happy ending for Yuta, and the most interesting, the only public comment Button made was this. She called Iroha Jin lucky, and it simply shocks everyone. Another VTuber watches from the shadows and laughs at how entertaining it all looks. Turns out she's the one calling him, and her name lights up on the screen, Yamanyushi Button. What? Suddenly, her chibi version jumps out of the pipe in his kitchen and asks for a 3D collab. He barely agrees, and she just explodes with joy, celebrating as if she just won the lottery. Kicking her legs, she explains that she is insanely a fan of super plays and always wanted to see one live. She approached him closely, looking him in the face, and insisted that they schedule it as soon as possible before he becomes too busy. Button pretends that his sudden fame is worth nothing, but Yamanyushi is already looking over his shoulder, completely fascinated. A sharp cut confirms, yes, his circle of acquaintances has officially become too complicated. It turns out Yamanyushi watched live, as Yuta's fans actually created a religion, making him their god. He tries to explain that the call to Yuta is nothing serious, just an everyday triviality. A call that completely interrupted you in the middle of the performance, by the way, well, cool, dude. Returning to the present moment, he lays out the plan for their joint stream, and she trembles with excitement. This plan is a cooking stream in the dungeon, essentially almost a repeat of the collab he already did. She winks and says that his last guest, by the way, received extraordinarily rare top-grade ingredients. But she just waved it off, saying everything is fine and, as the old saying goes, nothing is scarier than free. When everything is decided, Button dramatically pulls out a huge sack, ready for the main event. He shows a giant piece of orc meat, and Yamnu completely loses his head with joy. She is stunned that he brought such an exquisite ingredient, and he just shrugs as if it's nothing. He clarifies that this is literally the cheapest meat you can get from the dungeon, and she is just shocked. But the demand for it is so insane that ordinary people can hardly get it. He says since adventurers risk their lives for these things, their price will always be high. Yamanyushi understands this. If the reward is not worth the real threat of death, no one will go hunting. To get truly elite ingredients, you need to invest huge amounts of money. That's why it's a real luxury market. She notices in internet videos, orcs are always shown as a threat to beginners, so they seem less dangerous. Button asks if she has seen any of those clips. She nods and says she knows them well. So what is her impression of the orc? Like just a humanoid pig, a reasonable assumption. Button gently corrects her and shows a useful diagram. They are not pigs, they are wild boars. Thank you very much. He then asks what, in her opinion, an amateur researcher is like, and she says they are just a bit weaker than him. Her guy just burst out laughing, called it a complete miss, and puffed out his chest, boasting that he is at the highest level. He clarifies, even the most famous streamers who explore dungeons are all considered elite. He explains that the average amateur researcher in physical fitness is no worse than the best professional athlete. Yamanyushi is completely stunned by this, He does not believe that researchers can really be so incredible. But Botan just smiles sinisterly and says, "For a researcher, this is not impressive at all." On a convenient pyramid, it is visible that the top athlete is only the tip for ordinary people, and the dungeon is a completely different league. She still can't come to her senses and asks, is this true even for amateurs since they fight monsters? He confirms, emphasizing that the rookie orcs they encounter are much more dangerous than a wild bear. It's about a pack of muscular beasts the size of adult humans who will try their best to kill you. But here below, the title of Olympic champion means nothing, so Yaminiasi is completely confused. His answer is simple wisdom, courage, and a bit of that enhancement magic from fantasy RPGs. It's like a real video game in real life. You kill monsters, become stronger, and overcome human limits. Turning the lecture to the present, he waved his hand toward a huge piece of meat on the counter. For a moment he becomes serious and says that as a streamer he has a duty to convey to everyone, orcs are no joke. Yamanyushi immediately bowed and apologized for knowing nothing, but he just waved it off and said she shouldn't worry. He burst out laughing and said, if some rookie believed the internet and got crushed, it's his own fault. Yamanyushi is horrified. After this magical lesson in personal responsibility, he finally suggested cooking and eating orc meat. She asks what's on the menu, and he sincerely says, in the studio, I'm limited to what I can do on the stove. Botan suggests preparing shabu shabu, and Yamanyushi immediately picks up this idea. She looks over the counter, but it is clear that she hesitates a little. This is a mountain of orc meat, and she says that for hot pot it is a bit too much, but well, it is a gift for the staff. Again in the stream, the chat goes wild and shouts for the team members to step back, they want to see the food. Button explains that he gives the staff simple preparations and places them in front of the handheld camera, where they work under enormous pressure. While they fuss with that, he takes on the main task personally, cutting open a giant piece of meat. Yamnashi's eyes lit up finally, the super combination she so begged to see begins. At first he explains that the stove is too big to handle and grabs a knife, as if for a giant. With one clean motion, he flawlessly cut the entire huge piece of meat in half. He casually slides one of his pieces to the team, says that it is their share, and the chat screams with envy. With the ready portion in front of him, Botan thinks about how to cut it so that it looks the best. He decides, since he is already putting on a show, he will not allow any sloppiness. Yamanyushi looks with a self-satisfied smile, thinking that it is better for him to perform well enough to satisfy his senpai. So he decides to make a sashimi-style cut, sacrificing some speed for pure art, and Yamanyushi is stunned. She is completely stunned, excitedly saying that every movement looks as if performed by a true master. Yamanyushi adds that his usual cooking style is an unfathomable blur of movements. Barton calls that method inefficient and decides to change the approach. He throws the meat into the air. His eye suddenly becomes covered with a mesh pattern, as if he has become a living wire for a supermodern kitchen processor. And with an impossible gleam of steel, he slices everything in the air into perfectly thin, paper-like strips with one motion. Yamanyushi's mind completely explodes, her eyes literally turned into the hieroglyph meat. The meat lies on the plate in perfectly uniform shiny slices, a true work of art. Yamanyushi is simply stunned. She says that seeing him in action means a completely different level. Then the incredible aroma of shabu-shabu broth envelops them. It is a true paradise. While the hot pot bubbles cheerfully, the staff brings everything to the table for a grand feast. Both barely vibrate with excitement, hands clasped, ready to pounce. Yamanyushi asks about dipping sauces, hoping for classic ponzu that would suit the dish. Of course, our guy covers for her, pulling out a bottle like a true pro. When they discovered that both were crazy about ponzu, it turned into a very fierce, very strange festive arm wrestling. He asks if she wants rice, and she just explodes, well, of course, no way without rice. But this is not just any rice, it is perfectly steamed, shining, a bowl of pure white deliciousness. Next drinks, and Botan casually pulls out a small surprise from his pouch that he brought with him. From that tiny bag spills an entire store of alcohol, beer, wine, whiskey, anything. She asked for a specific expensive shochu, and he simply pulls out a huge bottle from the top shelf of the fridge. But Miniyushi panics, asking if she can really choose something so expensive, and he just says, "You like it, she." She clenches her fists and shouts that she just adores it, to the delight of everyone in the chat. This girl is practically in religious ecstasy over that bottle of liquor. He offers her ice, but she is a true purist. She drinks this legendary beverage neat. Botan takes a sip himself and passionately begins a tirade about how one should enjoy the pure, undiluted flavor. And all this just to immediately grab a can of beer for himself, because priorities, probably. And with this, the whole team, and the staff too, raise their glasses to a well-deserved cheers. Just one sip and Yamanouchi is on cloud nine, saying her day has already been a success. Botan teases her for having already eaten before the main course, and she insists, the broth is really that tasty. Without wasting a second, our guy announces that he will start first and grabs a piece of meat. He perfectly dips the orc meat into the ponzu sauce so that it is nicely coated. Then a pro move, a quick tap on the rice so it absorbs all the deliciousness. The first bite impresses, and he completely loses himself in a world of pure culinary bliss. It is a complex flavor. The tender sweetness of the meat is perfectly balanced by rich spicy fat, and the sharp acidity of the ponzu cuts through it all, leaving a crystal-clear finish. When you add fluffy white rice to that combination, it results in an incredible explosion of flavor. Finally, her turn comes, and Yamanouchi simply loses her head, shouting with delight at what an amazing thing this is. Even the workers are devouring it, and Botan, with a self-satisfied expression, reminds everyone that they are savoring a very expensive treat. She just shoves it into herself, completely at a loss for words from the incredible deliciousness. What surprised her the most was that this food was the lowest rank from the dungeon, yet it was so tasty. Meanwhile, Yuta watches from afar, truly worried that someone's taste sensations are now ruined forever. Another VTuber is also watching, and a little upset that her senpai is only experiencing this now. Returning to the studio, Yamanouchi drinks the beverage in one gulp, all happy and satisfied the collaboration was successfully completed. A few days later, a new VTuber, all in notes, checks the sound before her stream. She calls herself Senaku, and behind her stands a man who looks like her producer, with a gentle, almost all-knowing smile, she looks directly at the viewers, ready to begin. Then we see her next to a stern man in uniform, who announces the start of Senaku's palace. And so we jump back in time, and see the avatar of VTuber Botan self-satisfied and ready for a big external collab. A moment before the stream, Yamanouchi's phone suddenly rang. Manager Cass was on the line. He nervously answers, confirms who he is, and asks if she has a minute to talk. On the other end of the line, his manager says she has news about the external collaboration project. Botan instantly got excited and immediately asked if they had finally agreed on all the details. She formally apologizes for the delay, and her voice is full of business-like tone from head to toe. She also regrets that the corporation is interfering and essentially restricting his streams, but he just waved it off. Our guy understood everything. He represents the company, and after recent problems, they now have to think about profit. And by problem, he means the complete firestorm with Yuta, which has finally begun to subside. That is why he allowed the management to choose his next partner, but it seems he still has doubts. His manager admits it hurts her to see him being held back like this. Suddenly something clicked in him. He understood her anxiety. She fears that this is preventing him from moving toward his true goals. With a barely noticeable smile, he admits, yes, making more ambitious collabs is his biggest dream as a VTuber. A dream in which he teamed up with his idol Lemon, and they together prepared insanely crazy dungeon food. But he calmly tells her that he is in no hurry and is completely fine moving slowly with this future collaboration with Sakai. He even jokes that everyone tells him he is too impulsive, always rushing forward like a wild boar. Moreover, he clearly says, a regular stream is not the goal. His true aim is a large-scale offline collaboration with Asterisk. The manager points to a huge obstacle that requires trust, and after all this fiasco, his reputation is just down the drain. She explains personal trust and corporate rules are completely different things, and so far he has only worked with his own agency. Botan just asks her not to worry. He is simply having fun and at the same time earning money. His manager Kasai hangs up, promising to immediately send the documents for the collaboration. Botan confirms that he received the letter, eyes fixed on the screen, and the plan is finally taking shape. And then his VTuber avatar begins to explain how all that past led exactly to this moment. And next, the collab itself, led by the super energetic VTuber Senaku in her show, Senaku's Palace. She enthusiastically explains the plan for today, a QA session, with a bunch of other streamers she gathered. In front of her are 4 guys known in the VTuber world as the most chaotic personalities. But the broadcast instantly went awry when 2 of them mysteriously had their sound cut off, and Senaku was left completely confused. This guy in a military outfit is just panicking. He's having a real panic attack. His wireless mouse died at the worst possible moment. Meanwhile, the winged VTuber in sunglasses just stares into space and gives no explanations. Until he turned on the sound and announced that his delivery just arrived, holding up a fast food package in the middle of the stream. The other guests immediately jumped on him for ordering delivery during the live broadcast, a totally pro-gamer move. The nerd is just basking in this beautiful chaos, thinking that this chaotic energy is the essence of great collaborations. He got a little emotional, realizing that for the first time he truly felt part of this world. Another guest is simply stunned. He admits he's their fan and can't believe this is really happening. Poor Senaku tries to calm the flow after that messy start. She energetically opens the official introductions. The first guest looks like a cute magical girl, but imagine, it's actually a middle-aged man. Next, a winged guy who calls himself an incorrigible gambler living for chaos. This soldier adds, sincerely apologizing, he is a walking magnet for technical disasters. After the first 3 introductions, Senaku theatrically calls his last guest, and it is. Here is our guy Botan, presented as a super rookie, both a streamer and a true dungeon explorer. Senaku confessed that she has long been a fan of Botan, so that is why she personally invited him for a collab. She then says she looked at him and realized he is a complete idiot and the other guests just, aha, obvious. And she happily admits that the whole panel is a bunch of idiots and no one even tries to argue. This soldier is genuinely confused, asks if he is really that chaotic, but Senaku has already seen the evidence. Oh yes, there are entire collections of how his equipment fails, and streams die in the middle of the broadcast, a true natural disaster. This gambling guy calms him down, saying his constant failures are actually a powerful feature in this business. He tries to drag him into his reckless life, an offer that carries a high risk of bankruptcy. The soldier still does not understand, stubbornly insists he is not that weirdo with a star, while his new mentor whispers sweet words about duty. Botan enjoys this chaos, but suddenly realizes that the conversation has unexpectedly turned to him. Senaku reviews her notes and confidently says that, judging by his answers before the show, Botan is undoubtedly the craziest here. She completely loses her head and asks if he is serious, and our guy just laughs, confirming that every crazy word of his is true. Everything is decided. She appoints Botan as the loud finale of the QA session. She admits that this is the first time a guest has tested her hosting skills like this, and she is delighted. Pure, crazy joy played on her face as she prepared to dive into madness. And making a dramatic gesture, she brings up the first question for the panel on the giant screen. The question is simple: what is the biggest thing you have bought recently? Botan, knowing he is last, thought with a self-satisfied smile that he really had nothing to tell about big purchases. Senaku starts calls the magical girl who holds a whiteboard. Her big purchase is a brand new high-end microphone made specifically for her ASMR streams. Botan immediately asks how much it costs, and she freezes for a moment, already ready to lower the price. She announces the price, a whole 200,000 yen, and the other guys just lose their heads. After this explosive statement, Senaku calmly moves on to the next guest, a military dude. He proudly boasts that his big purchase is a super powerful PC, which he bought right before the debut, but then immediately apologizes for his boring and overly practical answer, and this greatly irritates Senaku. This passionate guy tries to calm him down, saying PC is normal, and the other people are weird. So he ends up in a full apology pose, while Senaku exposes him as a pathetic suck-up. Impressed, she pays attention to the enthusiast and essentially calls him the next weirdo in line. And this guy excitedly admits that he spent 2 million yen on a lucky pack during a gacha stream. Senaku is simply shocked he spent that much on collectible cards, but says, one successful opening will pay off everything. The rest of the panel can't even comprehend such a level of financial irresponsibility for a hobby. Even Botan, who plays the same game in the app, laughs at how everything got out of control. Senaku raises the microphone to Botan and announces that his answer makes him much crazier than everyone here. Our guy suddenly realizes that this whole matter was rigged to put him in an awkward position at the very end. Senaku still couldn't believe what she had read, so she asked him to confirm that he really recorded it. His answer appears on the screen: 2 studios, along with images of 2 entire buildings. The whole panel just shorts out when one guest literally tells him, speak Japanese, because it makes no sense. Senaku asks again if that means he took them on a long-term lease, and Botan indifferently replies, no, I bought them. He says he found a place where under one roof there was both a kitchen studio and a music studio, so he just bought it. She is just screaming now, unable to comprehend that he just impulsively bought 2 studios. Botan just shrugs and says it's not such a big deal, not like buying a whole new outfit or something like that. This gambling guy is just losing his head, shaking the nerd and shouting about hundreds of millions he just lost. He calmly explains that booking time in a studio for dubbing and singing is a real scheduling nightmare. Having your own corner where you can drop in at any moment is much more convenient, a truly simple solution. This military guy directly asks Botan if he might be a little out of his mind. Our guy simply calls it an investment, while others insist that they are not cheap, but this is just beyond all limits. When the magical girl asks why he does it, Botan simply cheerfully admits that he is fully aware of his problem. His logic is simple: money in the bank is to be spent, and when there is enough, the balance barely moves. Now this gambler is his biggest fan, saying he always wanted to say that phrase about an infinite bank account. Then he grabbed Barton by the head and begged him to say no-chan if he dies, the last request of a true freak. Finally, Sanako intervenes and asks the real question. The cooking studio for his streams is understandable, but why does he need a music studio? With a creepily cheerful smile, Botan simply says that it was actually a freebie that came with the house. Ignoring all streaming rules, Sanako bluntly asked him how much money he really has. The camera slowly raises its gaze to his laptop. On the screen is the bank balance, where a number with 13 digits is glowing. And the whole panel froze at once. Their brains showed a blue screen and could not process so many zeros. Sanako simply screams, asking if he is real. She had never before even seen a number with that many digits. Those two now bow to the ground, call him the Oil King, and warmly apologize for ever doubting him. Turns out, this is just the profit from selling one rejuvenation potion he found in the dungeon. It was bought out at auction for 15 trillion. He was clearly pleased with himself, thinking that although the topic was a real sensation, it definitely added drive to the stream. This gambler immediately tries to take over the stream and shouts at Sanako, "Drop the plan and just interview the billionaire." Embarrassed and unable to deny it, Sanako simply shouts, "Shut up," and as if an explosion, the show starts moving again. Sanako, physically pressing down the soldier, loudly explains the rules of the next round. You answer first, and then the big reveal. With a theatrical gesture, she announces the next question. Who here on this panel is the coolest person? This gambling guy is confused. He doesn't know how to approach this, and the soldier insists that he is the absolute bottom. Meanwhile, the magical girl proudly announces that she had no problem answering, full confidence, zero shame. This soldier guy asks if they all agreed on their answers, and the magical girl just winks and says it was total chaos. In response, Botan simply raises a photo of his cute cat Kaneko-kun, and everyone's hearts immediately melt. This magical girl immediately shouted that using a cat is basically cheating on a joint stream. Suddenly, the soldier recognizes the cat, and unable to contain his surprise, asks if this is the same famous cat from that incident, and then he marvels at this incredibly simple name, Kaneko-kun, which literally means Mr. Kitten. Botan simply explains, when he found him, he kept calling Kitten, and the name just stuck. Enchanted by the cuteness, the charming girl dreams of cat ears, but the gambler reminds her that she already has mouse ears. Somehow everything turns into her calling Sanako mom, after which a loud "I'm not your mom" thunders. Having calmed the chaos, Sanako announces that they are moving on to the last question of the day. The screen flashed a new prompt: what is your freshest, biggest screw-up? This gambling guy immediately says that it's clearly a trap to squeeze embarrassing gossip out of the newbies. But the soldier completely misunderstood it. He took off his hat as a sign of respect to the supposedly caring Sanako. Poor guy. This sorceress confesses, Botan's answers are so crazy that she saved them for last, and it made everyone nervous. Here's the first blunder on the screen. I dozed off during the planning of this very stream. Everyone agrees it's a classic streamer mistake, a real sin that instantly destroys your professional reputation. Sanako dramatically points to the panel and loudly demands to know who is to blame. This magical girl proudly raised her hand and without a trace of shame admitted, it was me who overslept. Turns out that the enthusiastic guy did the same, and the magical girl blames it all on a dead phone battery, saying the alarm didn't go off. Next on the board of shame, I lost my wallet, and the soldiers started sweating like crazy. Then it turns out to be the player's mistake. He bet on the wrong horse because he filled out the coupon incorrectly, a real degenerate moment. Sanako explains her logic. By the process of elimination, this mistake in the gambling game had to belong to him. With a devilish smile, she announces, finally, the time has come for the main event, Botan's failure. This magical girl looks completely scared, tensely preparing for some crazy response that will come next. Botan, meanwhile, is as calm as a cucumber, as if saying, come on, make your chaos. Our poor soldier is simply confused. He doesn't understand why everyone is so worried about one simple question. Sanako, with a gesture full of pure unrestrained joy, is ready to show the world Botan's answer. And on the screen, his biggest mistake is revealed: heart failure, and nothing else. Everyone in this shot is just going crazy and asking if this is some sick joke. But Botan is called to explain how he can look too calm for a guy who just confessed that he died. This magical girl desperately tries to find an excuse, hoping that it's just a sharp joke for the stream. But our guy cheerfully confirms that it's completely real and even has evidence to prove it. Then he casually offers to show them a photo of his real torn-out heart and indifferently adds that he feels better. We are shown a short flashback. He simply pours a potion on his chest to settle the whole matter with the missing heart. When asked why he has the photo, he said he documents his adventures, and Sanaku instantly called it psycho behavior. Then he admits he keeps the old heart in a jar as an exhibit showing the scar would be strange. Tanaka just explodes, "So am I the crazy one here?" And the whole frame answers yes, no, now it's their shared trauma. This avid gamer finally asks the millennial question, how can Barton be so indifferent to having his heart ripped out? In his world, Barton says that mortal wounds are just another ordinary Tuesday in the dungeons. And then he starts telling the story about that fateful day when he went on a small expedition. The scene takes place at the entrance to a dark, ominous cave, a classic start to any bad day. In the memory, we see how he rushes for his life, and a crowd of monsters right on his heels. Glancing quickly back, it is visible. He has already taken several hits, but still manages to stay ahead. And the one leading the attack is a huge, terrible single boss, and that is never a good sign. This monster unleashes a devastating attack with one incredibly strong swipe. It strikes down. The look. The real shock hit the nerd when he realized he had made a critical mistake that would turn his whole life upside down. The fist of this Oni passed through him, and his heart literally fell out. He forgot to hide it, the slap of all times. He cheerfully retells that fatal mistake, and the soldier looks as if he saw a ghost. Meanwhile, the gambler is just going crazy with laughter. This whole story seems incredibly funny to him. This magical girl is just trying to understand basic biology and asks, don't people just die without a heart? And Botan only smugly says, surprisingly, this is not yet the instant end of the game. Then he quickly explains that the heart is just a pump, without which one can temporarily manage. So she asks if he immediately used a potion to stop the bleeding. That is the only logical step. No, he counterattacked the boss, finished the fight, and then casually patched a huge hole in his chest. Sanaku is simply speechless. He says that any normal person after such an experience would be traumatized for life, but ours. And our guy just laughs, saying, you don't become an adventurer if you let such a little thing as death bother you. He strikingly posed and said that you're not a real pro until you die at least once. This soldier simply begs everyone not to think that all researchers are like this monster, who so easily resurrects from the dead. Sanaku tries to summarize this complete disaster of a story they just heard. She officially says that as ordinary people they are completely unable to comprehend Barton's reality, so they just give up. Everyone agrees, digging deeper means releasing even more unclean chaos. They are not ready for that. And then Sanaku finally presses the on-air button, officially ending the craziest collab in history. Everyone on camera sighed with huge relief, just happy to have survived the broadcast. The new girl in punk rock style asks if maybe they overdid it a bit, while Sanaku looks completely exhausted. And Sanaku just smiled brightly and said it was a wonderful mess and totally worth it because she was the one who invited him. This soldier admitted that the stream was definitely memorable, and the gambler added that Barton simply stole the whole show. And Barton just shrugged indifferently, as if to say that this happens when he is around. Then he cheerfully suggests that they all do another collab soon, and the gambler is simply shocked by this. Looking at the screen, the player was stunned. Now he is friends with the entire panel for the first time outside his usual circle. He quietly, happily says, yes, it is clear that he is truly pleased with the new acquaintances he has made. Our gambler is sincerely touched. He says he found a new friend and is already eagerly awaiting their next stream. This touching moment instantly disappears when he gets excited and shouts that next time they need to be even crazier. After some time, the player was again at his desk, and on a work call on the other end of the line was none other than Botan. Suddenly, the same punk girl, Hanabi, bursts into the call, shouts Botan's name, and scares the player. She enthusiastically tells another girl how wild the last collab was, calling Botan's performance a real explosion. The other girl, quiet with pigtails, just looks up from her book and appears completely confused by this conversation. Now she is in total panic, demanding to know what video Linky is preparing and what is going on here at all. Hanabi cheerfully admits that she just wanted to see their reactions, live purely for fun. The girl with braids is already completely losing it, screaming and demanding to know when the stream even started. And in the next shot, Barton's solo stream, where he gladly greets viewers in the long-awaited cooking segment. He is now live from his new home studio and says that this is the very studio from that infamous collaboration. After a cute loading screen, the scene smoothly shifts to his brand new kitchen. Standing in a shiny professional kitchen, he smilingly announced that today's menu is a simple egg dish. And by simple, he means using an egg the size of a damn watermelon. The chat just explodes. This giant egg is a real monster drop, and his viewers are already scratching their heads trying to guess where it came from. It turns out it's from the hegemonic cicatrice, and he even adds a photo of this horrible creature. Then he addresses the audience, asking what to make of it, holding the giant egg like a proud father. With a devilish smile, he says he will cook a classic fried egg on toast, the breakfast of champions. This instantly ignites a fierce debate in the chat about the proper seasoning for eggs, a true holy war. Then Botan indifferently adds fuel to the fire, starting a completely off-topic argument about snacks. Having enjoyed the chaos he created himself, he switches back to the cooking stream on his laptop. Ingredients are laid out on the table: monster egg, bread, margarine, and a few simple seasonings. Raising the margarine, he looks as if he is about to throw another provocative question to the audience. He gently added that butter is also an option, it's just a matter of taste. And then he asks how many people actually prefer margarine, and again stirs up a hornet's nest. Going crazy from the heated verbal war, the chat officially nicknamed him the Ignition Machine. Finally back on track, he takes a knife and cuts a ridiculously thick slice of bread. He starts by shoving several ridiculously thick slices of bread into the toaster oven to add texture. Next, he takes out a huge wok blazing with heat for the main event, the fried egg. Instead of cooking oil, he lifts a fresh tub of soft margarine. With a truly wild smile, he asks the chat how much they think he will use. And then he throws a whole brand new bar into the frying pan, and the chat is already shouting about calories. The nerd calmly talks about his special way of cooking this egg. It turns out it's not just frying. He actually uses a technique from the internet, pouring hot oil over the egg while it cooks. For some reason, he is now wearing a bird mask and is straining to recall its exquisite European name. This margarine is now a boiling pool of liquid death, and he says it looks good. The oil is ready. He carefully lowers the heat on the stove. Finally, it's time to put the monster egg on the frying pan, and the whole chat holds its breath. He gently lowers the egg so as not to splash the liquid, hot edge around. This huge egg slaps onto the frying pan with a majestic sizzle, and the chat explodes with delight. He enthusiastically explains that this pouring method is the secret to a perfectly runny yolk. In a small diagram, you can see how hot oil is spooned on top, and the dish gently reaches readiness without overdoing it. For such a gigantic egg, he says, there is no other way, either raw on top or burnt on the bottom. This final dish is served with toast sticks, salt, and pepper, a breakfast that could kill the weaker ones. He admits that this amount of calories is practically a war crime, but tells everyone not to worry. Because he is a traveler, he can simply gulp down a potion of health and nullify all fat problems. Then he tells his viewers that they can eat like this too, they just need to fight monsters every day. He explains that for adventurers, both men and women eating competitions are practically a national sport. He says, like in Minecraft, you constantly gather resources in a ruthless world, so you have to eat. Delicious food is the only thing that keeps your sanity indicator from dropping to zero, and zero is death itself. When you find yourself in a life-and-death battle with a monster, the body simply starts storing energy. Then Barton decisively debunks a common myth about explorers like him. Look, athletes are bound by rules, weight categories, and a bunch of physical restrictions. But for an adventurer, it's complete chaos. Everything is allowed here in the most literal sense of the word. They use any weapon, push their bodies to insane limits, and simply endure. Because of this, their bodies are tuned only to one thing: survival at any cost. So his idea of health is on a completely different wavelength than that of an ordinary person. He seems to encourage the chat, "Don't worry, you are not eating it," and they simply respond, "Well, okay." After the biology lesson, he grabs a knife, finally ready to bite into his masterpiece. He dips a piece of toast right into the huge golden yolk, and the chat explodes with delight. The first bite is pure bliss. He is simply thrilled by how incredibly tasty it is. This rich, concentrated taste of the yolk is a full meal in itself. In fact, the taste of the yolk is so powerful that it completely drowns out the margarine sitting on its throne like a king. And then a sharp bite of black pepper bursts in, adding another layer to this culinary chaos. For the main moment, he places the whole egg on a piece of toast and eagerly prepares to make a sandwich. He takes a huge bite, wildly enjoying the crispy toast and the rich runny yolk, the perfect combination. Even the egg white is perfectly cooked crispy and soaked with that incredibly tasty margarine flavor that seems to clog arteries. He says that this is not a dessert at all, it is a full-fledged, hearty, and spicy dish in itself. He says that it is like the concentrated taste of dozens of eggs gathered into one perfect yolk. Our guy is completely immersed in this moment, savoring every bite. He almost managed everything only thanks to the natural taste, but now it's time for phase 2. Pulling out a bottle of soy sauce, he is ready to give the sauce faction their moment of glory. With a huge smile, he exclaims that it's time to change the taste and simply pours the egg to the top. The soy sauce gathers right in the center of that wonderful liquid yolk. He raises this new creation as if it were a masterpiece, the perfect combination of salty and rich flavor. The second wave of taste hits so hard that his brain seems to melt from pure bliss. His chat is grumbling because he is too busy with a religious experience to give a proper food review. Meanwhile, the quiet girl with braids suddenly remembers that Botton's premium video is finally coming out today. She opens his channel, her heart pounding about to click on the dungeon vlog, a stream of joint viewing. On the loading screen suddenly appeared the inscription, "Waiting for no one else, Hanabi is to join the team." And instantly Hanabi explodes on the screen with her signature energetic intro. She confirms that today, as promised, the big joint viewing everyone has been waiting for will finally take place. Her stream is already packed over 21,000 viewers from all over the world, and everyone is going crazy in anticipation of the vlog. Hanabi makes a light salute and admits that she is a little scared of how little she actually knows about life in the dungeon. Settling in, she explains that Botton himself requested this, but she has no idea what they are about to see. She thinks this is a good way to tame all that wild and unpredictable attention that is pouring onto him. Because only a connection with Botton and your stats instantly skyrocket, and he already has over 25 million subscribers. The chat immediately accuses Botton, saying he arranged all this just for the views. But the girl with braids just looks ahead gloomily, let the haters say whatever they want. It turned out she had no choice. It was a colleague's request she could not refuse. She knows she is just a fox holding back the power of a tiger, and she is the first to admit it. In fact, she is preparing for the fire war, a clenched fist. She is waiting for the inevitable chaos. She's going to endure the whole barrage of hatred and turn the huge Botton audience into her fans. She raised a finger to explain the basic rules of watching together. She tells everyone to open the vlog on their screens because she cannot rebroadcast it herself. And then she sees that there are over 50,000 people in Botton's waiting room and starts to panic terribly. A 1-minute countdown appears on the screen, and the tension is simply palpable in the air. His stream starts with a warning about intense footage, and it is surprisingly professional. Next, a cute retro loading screen, as if straight from an old RPG. The vlog finally begins with a shot of a hand in the sand, and Botton asks himself in surprise if he is recording. He casually says a calm "good evening" to his premium viewers, as if it is just another Tuesday. And then he drops a bomb, says that he is on a tropical beach inside a dungeon, and Pigtail's mind just broke. Our guy decided that standing is boring, so he calmly headed to the water to finally get down to business. He made a strange gesture with his hand towards the ocean, and everyone froze in confusion, not understanding his plan. And then he parts the entire sea of frickin' like a modern Moses, revealing the ocean floor. This pushes the girl with pigtails into a genuine scream. She simply cannot comprehend what she sees. Her chat simultaneously explodes with a mixture of pure worship and absolute frantic amazement. Pigtails just spams "no, no, no," her brain completely fried from what she just saw. She desperately tries to convince herself that this is just incredible CGI, it can't be real, right? Meanwhile, Hanabi shivers from a sudden, eerie feeling of déjà vu, as if she has already experienced this. Another girl also looks in horror, finally realizing how massive this event was. It reminds her as if she is watching disaster videos on the internet, a feeling of absolute, overwhelming power. In the video blog, the parted sea thunderously closed, and Botton announced that the war had officially begun. Then he turns to the camera with a smirk and casually says that there is an enemy here who came to kill you. Pigtails instantly becomes alert, completely stunned by his casually thrown statement about danger. The ocean itself begins to swell and bubble, rising into a massive, unnatural hill. And suddenly from the depths bursts a colossal monster, a gigantic aquatic sea slug. Our heroine is now shouting at her monitor about the impossible physics of all this, demanding that it look at reality. Cute Chibai Botton jumps onto the screen to quickly talk about today's target, of course. He introduces Yumi Furashi, a giant astral monster made of seawater, essentially a sea slug the size of a kaiju. She's almost going crazy at how effortlessly he explains everything, while Botton just smiles as if he knows it all. Two huge walls of water now hold the giant slug suspended in the air. Chibibot. Button explains that he is literally summoning rain from the ocean, and Pigtails just yells at him, "Get to the point already." Defeated, she hangs over the table and admits that even her simple brain now understands what is happening. It dawns on her, if a monster of such size falls from the sky, the impact will be catastrophic. But Button only smiles slyly and announces the beginning of taming the giant monster, as if it were a simple game. He takes one measured step forward on the bare seabed, ready to start the fight. Button lays out his plan: the first option, run, because one hit means instant death. But since the usual response is useless, he chooses the second option and parts the sea again. With a completely crazy smile, he rushes straight to the water abyss he created himself. Then he does a wild backflip right over what suspiciously looks like a sea mine at the bottom of the ocean. Pigtails just screams at her monitor. She simply cannot comprehend his absurd logic. This giant snail monster now just sits at the bottom of the sea, as if completely stunned. Like a true supervillain, Button summons several energy spheres and invites the kaiju to play. Now he is literally running on water, dodging lightning bolts, while Pigtails just watches him die. She howled again. Button punched the ground with incredible force. And suddenly the video sharply changes. He is in a fancy outfit and cheerfully says goodbye for today. And then he even has the audacity to ask everyone to like and subscribe if they enjoyed that chaos. Two tiny chibi versions of him wave goodbye, and the chat just goes crazy over this cliffhanger. Pigtails is just staring at the screen, completely stunned after this crazy, feverish vlog. She finally snaps and calls the bot a complete idiot because of his confident farewell at the end. Meanwhile, another streamer just plops down into a chair and can't comprehend what he just released into the world. His hands hover over the keyboard. He realizes that this content is too intense for a regular stream. The last chaotic shot, Barton stands in the middle of a sea of flames and makes peace signs. Elsewhere, other girls were in complete shock. They knew this video would cause a huge uproar. Suddenly, a completely new girl with blonde hair appears and exclaims that from now on she places all her faith in the bot. At that very moment, her eyes shone with a new, slightly frightening devotion. The Button vlog officially broke the internet clip channels, and self-proclaimed adventurers sprang up everywhere. Hanabi is just going crazy, shouting his name as she realizes this has turned into a global political incident. During a call, she scolds him for sending those crazy shots into her stream, and he just stretches. He doesn't care. Meanwhile, another girl tells him she was completely shocked by that video, and a little warning wouldn't have hurt. He just leaned back and said that her sincere reaction, the one where it seems like the soul leaves the body, was exactly for that, so no spoilers. He says it simply and plainly. Dungeons are now an everyday thing, but the work of an adventurer remains a deadly battle with monsters. His logic for choosing that particular kaiju is simple. He is from the water, so there will be no blood, and Hanabi just boils over from his reasoning. Button admits he didn't just accidentally end up in this Vtuber project. He truly is insanely enjoying all of it. He finds it terribly funny to watch how newbies react to a real dungeon. For that, Hanabi only cursed, "You have a terrible character." But that is not the only reason, and this is exactly what completely confuses Hanabi about his motives. His face changes for a moment, seriousness covers him, and he puts that thought aside for later. Because his number of subscribers exploded to over 21 million, and with such numbers came huge problems. The first problem: anti-fans and crowds of hatred have officially activated and launched an offensive. And the second, even more alarming problem is that his entire audience has radically changed. After that crazy video, most of his new subscribers signed up. They wanted even more adventures from him. But he is primarily a VTuber, so he will continue to play games and do his usual streams. He knew perfectly well these new viewers do not care at all about his relaxed culinary streams or casual chats. The real problem is that half of this huge new audience is from abroad, and that's a completely different story. You can't just brush off a huge international fan base. It doesn't work that way. Because when dealing with an international audience, everything can get very, very complicated very quickly. The language barrier is a real disaster. His international audience gets completely lost during chat streams. His team just looks at the keyboard, holding their breath in anticipation of the chaos about to unfold. And in his chat, a multilingual wave of people was raging, demanding one thing: more talks about dungeons. But Button tries to explain that it's not that he ignores them, he simply literally cannot respond in foreign languages. Usually a VTuber just improvises from comments to keep the stream lively and engaging, but now his international viewers completely drown out his native Japanese fanbase. This brings him to problem number 3, the incredible difficulty of doing collaborations at his level. Because his number of subscribers is not just large for a VTuber, it is top level even for any creator in the entire country. He can no longer simply accept random collaboration requests from newcomers. It will turn into a real organizational nightmare. Instead, proposals are falling on him from all sides, and he finds himself in an incredibly awkward situation. This guy has basically become unreachable, a god-level creator, too big to hang out with. He grandiosely announces his grand decision. He is launching a completely new subchannel to fix everything. His chat immediately goes crazy, thinking something terrible has happened or that he is deleting his main channel. He says the subchannel will be for all his usual VTuber content, games, cooking, and collabs. Meanwhile, the main channel has now officially become the home for all his crazy dungeon vlogs. Having sorted that out, he finally gets down to the main thing, announcing his new content strategy. He says it straight, without embellishment. Now he is at the very top of the VTuber food chain. His brand new subchannel already has 3 million subscribers, so the whole act of "I'm a newbie" is officially over. Under such attention, he himself admits, now it is obvious he is truly an important person. From now on, he is tired of waiting. Now he will be the one writing to people and proposing collabs. He has already received the green light from several streamers who are ready to launch his new era full of collabs. With a self-satisfied smile, Vtuber told everyone to follow his social networks. Announcements will be there soon. Somewhere else, someone, illuminated by a screen, is watching a stream announcement from his sub-channel on their phone. The new guy in a fancy vest read the news and immediately exclaimed that this is a declaration of war, and at that moment, his rival appeared. The stage is set, and the moment for a new conflict could not be better. Suddenly, we switch to Vtuber's cooking stream. He beams with a smile and warmly welcomes everyone to his sub-channel. He boasts about a brand new kitchen, which it turns out he bought spontaneously after the previous studio shoot. And he literally kidnapped his first guest Hanabi from the office and threw her into a cage, all for the sake of a surprise joint project. Another girl from the watch party just stands there, completely confused, looking at her colleague in the prison cell. Vtuber just gave a thumbs up and explained that he can't let her escape while he is cooking. What a psycho. Then he reveals the main ingredient of his recipe, a giant, creepy limb. Hanabi's face seemed to melt from pure, uncontrollable horror at the sight of the monster's parts. She is so disgusted that she cannot watch and tries to physically cover the view with her hand. Later, she is forced to taste the final product, while Vtuber calmly checks his equipment, not worrying at all. Next, a collab with a wildly energetic host who yells at her audience to burn it. Other streamers are captivated by his voice, and he immediately asks if they want him to promote them. A flurry of black feathers crosses the screen, a sign that the pace is changing. Under the moonlight, a traditional building stands ominously, and someone whispers, "This cannot be." Now he is in a collab with Mahjong with a winged guy and a dude in military uniform. This winged guy asks what he is planning with all these collabs, and Vtuber just laughs and says that Asterisk still has a bad temper. Vtuber calmly places a tile in Mahjong and, as if nothing happened, says that he did not win this combination. Usually. This winged guy thoughtfully reflects on how he is finally achieving his long-standing goals, and that dude in dark glasses just smiles and says he is a big fan of this unstoppable ambition. 3 of them were just relaxing on the balcony, having an unexpectedly deep conversation in the middle of the game, but their 4th player, that soldier, suddenly turns off the screen. It goes dark. His teammates immediately started mocking him. He not only got kicked out, but also muted himself. Finally, he reconnects in a panic, shouting that his turn timer is about to run out. And just at the right moment, the timer hits 0, and the game automatically moves the piece for him. Oh no. These 2 immediately declare themselves winners, taking advantage of his mistake, while the poor guy just loses his mind. A friend just yells at him, asking, "Why did you throw away that winning tile?" But that winged dude becomes truly creepy when he says that a real hunter must be gentle with his prey. Returning to the present, Vtuber enthusiastically emphasizes his new strategy: more collabs more often. The plan is ready. He is preparing to launch the next stage of his career. He is already bustling, getting ready to meet a streamer named Sakai Jin for a future collab. The first step: grab the backpack and set off to gather ingredients for a real welcome party. Suddenly, memories flash in his head, a dark cave where a distant scream echoes. We see the younger Vtuber, warmly recalling that first adventurer he once looked up to. This memory is about a lone fighter who faced a huge, terrifying monster resembling a dragon one-on-one. And that traveler turned out to be none other than Sakai Jin himself, in the year of his legendary debut.